you can save your alibi. I already know you lied. Oh no, no, don't even try. Watch the flame in me ignite. You didn't wanna walk the plank. But then ready or not, it came. Baby, it was dark, it was hard to see. And that's when the spark lit inside of me. Oh, I was lost from reverie. Oh, one day you will see what you made of me, what's inside of me. Oh, one day you will see I found my inner peace. You are release in the dead of night. In the dead of night. Baby, when you still die, you know it's an eye for eye. Feel the energy align in the dead of night. 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 And one day you will see what you made of me, what's inside of me. Oh, and one day you will see I found my inner beast, and you watch it release.
Fallen one too many times, feeling like it never ends. Back again, square one. Tried to leave myself behind, looking for a better place, not to stay alone. Gain our trust and you chose to break it. Ask for truth but you only fake it. Thought you said what we had was sacred. It's all lies, all lies. I was broken and isolated, but inside held the fire waiting. Not a word that you say can save this, so don't try, 'cause this time you crossed the line. This time you crossed the line. Funny how the tables turned. Didn't think I'd go this far, but here we are, the end. Now you're just a lesson learned, a slowly fading memory, so I can breathe again. Gain our trust and you chose to break it. Ask for truth but you only fake it. Thought you said what we had was sacred. It's all lies, all lies. I was broken and isolated, but inside held the fire waiting. Not a word that you say can save this, so don't try, 'cause this time you crossed the line. This time you crossed the line. This time you crossed the line. You crossed the line. You crossed the line. This time you crossed the line. You crossed the line. This time you crossed the line.
Getting hype when I aim up, elevating that game up, stepping up to the competition. Only first place, and that's how I'm living. I'm with it till they digging up my grave, eating all the things up on my plate. Game face when I step up into place. was born and when I watched me elevate.
Hello, friends, and welcome back to First Strike 2 Strike Again qualifiers. My name is Nyarko. I'm here with Blastmaster, and we're about to dive into a best-of-3 series between Magic Carpet Enjoyers and Alchemical Flask. Super happy to be here in this tournament hosted by Colossal Tournaments. It is a privilege to get into another dimension of Deadlock esports so early on in the beginnings of this wonderful game. Blastmaster, I know this is your first time entering on into this space. How you feeling?
I'm super excited. Everything I've played with Deadlock and everything I've seen to the production side of it is everybody behind this game is so passionate and excited to just mess with it, and that it's infectious. I'm super excited for this game. Even the team names are on brand for everything
Yeah,
going
this
on.
is
It
a
looks
this is the peak era for brand new team names that have a sense of humor beyond them. We were
yeah.
casting My Dong in grand finals of Deadlock Core, so this is actually a little bit tame compared to what we've been seeing in the past. But I know you're bringing us in, transitioning into the draft here, so we in fact do have Alchemical Flask, I believe, on the right. That will be the Sapphire Flame, while the Amber Hand is going to be in the hands of Magic Carpet Enjoyers, although I guess that could shift. Not exactly sure where we are on that front. Regardless, got two bands that we're diving into the 6 stacks.
all right. Yeah, roster isn't big enough to have leagues whole. Everybody gets a ban for everything yet. But it is nice to see Valve is slowly making additions to the roster. Like already super cool characters like Mirage, I think his name is.
Oh yeah,
The
Mirage
voice
was
character?
added recently.
Mm-hmm. Which are super different. Like so much variety in these characters, and it that nice classic Valve experimentation encouraged with every single one of them and the items and everything has me so excited to see some high level gameplay from these folks.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've been getting a few different little versions of overall comps and identities coming through here. There's been dive-oriented teams, there's been engage-oriented teams, there's been poke-oriented teams. I do think that there are some characters who right now are kind of pushing towards the boundaries of a little bit OP in my eyes, so we're going to see whether or not those are prioritized. I know that in a lot of cases, high elo lobbies are kind of being decided by which team gets the Shiv and how well that Shiv plays, so that could be something that's on the table here. But it looks
Okay.
like Alchemical Flask is going to actually knock away a 7 pick first and foremost.
That's not surprising. Even for my level, Seven is everywhere, and he is very good. Like incredibly flexible, great to see. And there's the Shiv you were talking about, immediate first pick.
Yeah, I'm a little bit concerned about the fact that Magic Carpet Enjoyers doesn't seem to have banned someone. It could be the case that they just missed the timer on that. Perhaps we'll get an update from the producers. It looks like it is actually a McGinnis that was banned away. I think that's a smart
Okay.
call as well. Out of all the characters in the game, while I don't think McGinnis gets a lot of kills by herself, what she does do is massively snowball any game in the favor of the team with the McGinnis if that team is able to set up for big team fights early on, because you could just roll through objectives in an instant, open up flex slots, and from there, we all know the identity of Deadlock, I think, is built around the fact that a lot of these teams are able to turn what was an even game for a significant portion of time into an absolute stomp near the very end. Now, this is pretty interesting coming out of Alchemical Flask. As a response to the Shiv, they're going to pick up a Lady Geist of all things, and well, I feel like she's very strong during the laning phase. I haven't seen a whole lot of her in competitive play.
Yeah, she really thrives in the 1v1 environment, but once there's everything flying everywhere, it's a little harder to focus.
And it also just feels like you could play around her ult a lot better if you have multiple people dogpiling upon her, or just
Right.
on comms saying, hey, this cooldown is available, make sure you don't get very close. Can someone with a little bit more of a long range ability get in on her? And I know that as someone who plays a ton of Lash, and oftentimes finds myself jumping in on a Lady Geist only to get ulted, I really do appreciate that element that is coming through with these competitive scenes where people are all on call together, people are looking to coordinate and actually bring the potential of Deadlock out through its team play. But so far, we're getting a lot of solo lane killers in a way, as this is going to be a pocket also established for the side of the Alchemical Flask.
The last selected by Enthaz, and followed up immediately by a very confident Paradox pick there. like you were saying, a lot of just the team setup that comms lets folks get a lot more creative with this. Both in like playing around the characters and countering them.
Yeah, I would agree with that. What I will note right now is it feels like both teams have kind of settled core damage dealers on their side, and now I would like to see that built with a bit more utility as well as a bit more in the way of tankiness. Lash can operate as a pseudo tank depending on how you build him. I personally am a big fan of the tactical nuke Lash build where you're just trying to get as high as possible with Majestic Leap and you build
Just
Spirit.
the axe kick from orbit to hit as hard as possible.
But this is going into that dynamic I was talking about here. The Kelvin is going to be immensely valuable for Alchemical Flask, being able to get those domes upon choicey characters, stop people like the Lash or the Shiv from over-engaging. But on the response, I really do like the fact that Magic Carpet enjoyers are going to grab the Viscous here. This is perhaps the single most challenging character within this realm of tank and disruptor that you can play within the game, especially when you look at the likes of Abrams or Rowan Krill. But a good Viscous is a boon to any team that can pilot it. So I really think that while this could be a gamble depending on the exact skill level of Magic Carpet enjoyers, if it is in fact a skilled player on this character, all of a sudden this pocket, this Lady Geist, feel a lot less secure in their ability to do damage consistently.
Yeah, everyone loves those characters who, on the surface, very hard to get your head around, very hard to make work. But once you really take the time to double down and learn more about them, Viscous is absolutely that type of character that can just absolutely swing fights on his own.
A Wraith Hover and Lock-In for the side of Alchemical Flask. This is a character that is also a little bit of a problem. Kind of a different identity in regards to being a damage dealer than the Lady Geist or the Pocket, where Wraith is exceptionally good at just split pushing and pulling pressure. And I think that this is a smart call. Being an avoidant splitter in a game like this when you're up against people with immense chase potential like the Lash and Viscous is valuable. But sometimes you just got to make sure you're playing your cards right, because there's still a great potential for a Paradox to tag you as you're trying to teleport on out of there. So I think that this is going to be something that Alchemical Flask has to be very balanced in their approach to, but I do like the fact that they're going to follow that up with a Moat and Krill. That's going to help their side immensely, as now it's Magic Carpet enjoyers who are going to solidify their team with another carry in the form of that Haze, and they're bringing Mirage along to the party as well.
I would say, finally, some tank on Alchemical Flask side. Kelvin gives a lot of sustain, and obviously, like, the huge alt heals, all the slows is a lot of value, but the proper, like, MOBA crowd control-y tank, something on Alchemical Flask. I like the Mo there. Although, I guess, closest thing that Enthos has is Viscous, who is pretty tanky, can provide a lot of CC, but there's just a lot of damage on both sides here.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that in many cases, these are people attempting to demonstrate their mastery in 1v1s and 2v2s, and then just hoping to cascade an early lead into one team fights. But there is enough setup on either side that I'm not super worried about either team saying, hey, our philosophy in this one is going to be grouping, particularly as Alchemical Flask is going to add to the equation by grabbing themselves a Bebop of all things. We saw a little bit of an Ivy hover there, but this Bebop, I think, makes a lot of sense. This is going to add to that dynamic I was talking about, where you are looking and hunting to tag people, and you also want to be able to mitigate the value that big engages have on your team. And so Bebop is one way to do that. You could uppercut people away, but more valuable to that, you can actually move the fight line forward towards your side. Do something like grab a Haze, burst them before they could get their ult off is obviously really valuable. Stopping a Mirage from being able to just poke afar could also be something that we look at here. Stopping Paradox from being able to get a really good P-swap is also on the table. There's a lot of really good targets for the side of Alchemical Flask, but I will say overall, Blastmaster, maybe it's just the pickup of the Lash. Maybe it's the fact I think that Shiv is absolutely OP and needs to get kneecapped immediately. I'm going to say I'm preferring Magic Carpet Enjoyer's draft overall.
It definitely feels a bit more well-rounded. I do like just the sheer amount of mobility that's on it. But I don't know. Some of the picks on Alchemical side, like who doesn't like a hook? Bebop is gonna give a lot. I personally enjoy playing a lot of Kelvin. A lot of the picks on Flask side have me very interested in Nyarko. So I'm just excited to see this, to get this going. I want to get in there now.
Yeah, and certainly we're going to be on our way to locking in for game number 1 of this best of 3 series between Magic Carpet Enjoyers and Alchemical Flask here. And first strike 2, strike again. The qualifiers so far have been fantastic. Very happy that Colossal Tournaments is putting on another edition of this to further showcase the fact that right now, even though Deadlock Esports is in its infancy, is exceptionally accessible to everybody. If you have any inkling of desire to push past ranked and stop solo queuing and instead play in a new environment, there are opportunities out there for you, because it's not only First Strike, right? It's Grit and Glory League, it's DTC, it's DTS. All these different people are making a major mark here within the realm of Deadlock, and I really do think that by getting some more of these teams out there, by just getting more footage on the table, we're going to get a more complete view of what this game looks like when played at the highest level. Because even when we look at teams like, say, Buff Enjoyers Blastmaster, who's been doing so well for themselves, winning tournament after tournament, we still see gaps in game plan that is just going to come from getting more reps in. And by developing in that way, I really do think that First Strike and these other tournaments are major players in ensuring that while we have a complete understanding of the metagame once the game fully releases, and from there we can immediately dive into all the top tier action we're hoping to see.
Yeah, like you were saying, in every one of these high level competitive games, no matter what you want to see, solo queue and playing with your friends and playing in a proper, like, esports ready calmed team is entirely different. And seeing those players like push a game to its boundaries and get every little drop of effort they can out of it is the most enthralling part about being an esports. It's why I love casting. It's why I'm sure you do. It's why everybody here loves watching it, and it's why I'm so excited to get to this first match.
Absolutely. Now, I really do hope that one dynamic that gets cut down upon as we move deeper on into Deadlock Esports is this idea that the game just kind of snowballs out of control if someone loses lane significantly within 15 minutes. Because if anything, the value of an individually winning lane gets all the more impactful the higher that you go up in level. Because Blastmaster, the dynamic becomes that you push a lane, you take Guardian first, get some kills. It's not the soul leads that come from that, it's the soul leads that then come from choking resources out on the map. You get to farm enemy jungle camps, that's a big part of it. But beyond that, your ability to then have first mover priority to big things like the urn or just ganking other lanes means that it's just so easy to tear down all the Guardians, all the walkers, and leave the enemy team with nothing. So hopefully we'll be able to see some responsiveness to that dynamic here. One of the reasons why, though, I am leaning towards Magic Carpet Enjoyers and their draft is the fact that I think the rotations are just better. I talked a little bit about Wraith for Alchemical Flask being a really good split pusher, but look what you have on the other side. If Magic Carpet Enjoyers can get ahead, Haze is able to free farm all those camps that I'm talking about getting pushed up. But beyond that, you have Lash being able to rotate across the map super quickly. Mirage has teleport on ultimate that can similarly do that kind of work. Viscous, if you're good, has all the crazy movement tech to launch you from place to place. Overall, I do think that Alchemical Flask needs to be exceptionally careful and ensure that they win early. They're kind of indexing towards that front anyway by getting that Lady Geist that's a lane bully, as well as Bebop, who really needs those bomb stacks.
No, absolutely. It's just like a lot of MOBAs, laning and teamfight phases are just entirely different games. I like you were calling out, especially for Lady Geist, a lot of characters that thrive in one might not thrive in the other. So something fun on my time casting things like League is seeing how players need to almost play two different versions of the character as the game goes on. And that's something I'm really, really excited for. Like, yeah, Bebop can struggle a little bit in lane if he can't exactly hit the hooks. But during teamfight phase, all it takes is one good bomb, and that is just a massive hole in the enemy team.
Absolutely. We are getting an update from the production side, Blastmaster, regarding who each individual player is piloting. So for the Amber Hand side, which is going to be that side of Magic Carpet Enjoyers, we got Mellow piloting the Shiv. That's going to be in a solo lane off to the yellow side. And then we're going to have Wick and Enthos together on Mirage and Paradox, respectively, followed by Haze and Viscous together. Those are going to be played by Sample and I Am Mamba. And then in another solo lane, we're going to have Darkstar 1-up TTV on that Lash. Now, we are seeing a lot of big swaps early on. People are deciding, hey, even though we're auto-assigning these lanes, this isn't actually what's best for us. So I imagine we could get some rotations. Notably, I think that Lash is better in the duo lane, and maybe you put a Mirage there on solo on purple or something like that. But you do kind of need the Viscous in a duo. You need the Haze in a duo. Shiv, I think, is going to be fine solo, but they are going to be facing off against Lolo on the Bebop for the Sapphire Flame, which is Alchemical Flask. Meanwhile, Green Lane is going to be taken up on this side by Caleb playing Lady Geist and Big Donovan playing Pocket. Indio, I believe, is on Helvin alongside Excuses on Mo and Krillin Blue, and then Jord is playing that Wraith on Purple.
It's the small joys to me. There's something about seeing Steam icons in game that is just the funniest thing in the world. Some of them are super, like, you get to be super goofy with them. But yeah, no, I'm almost surprised to see Lady Geist in a duo lane. I feel like she, especially like, I almost expected her and Bebop, like Lolo and Caleb, to have swapped spots just because of how strong.
It could still happen though, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. No, this is there's no shame in lane swap.
Yeah, so those are going to be the selections here. Very interested in seeing how this plays out, as I think for me, one of the dynamics at hand is going to be that idea of a duo lane, in many cases being slightly more resilient than a solo lane in terms of snowballing, because you could still have someone catching waves, pushing back out. Regardless, we are going to see how everything coalesces, as we are, in fact, moving on into game number 1. Finally, this is what you've been waiting for, Blastmasters. And
Here we go.
This is a Lady Geist in a duo lane.
A little surprising. First, no one's gonna say no to all that, especially between Lady Geist and Pocket. They just hard focus down one of the members of the other side of Green Lane. Still absolutely sure. Plenty.
I think our name tags are a little bit wonky right now, but I believe that is going to be Magic Carpet Enjoyers on the Amber Hand, so that is the team on the left, and Alchemical Flask is going to be taken to the team on the right. There we go. Shout out to production, by the way, for bringing all this together. Deadlock is an immensely complicated game to be able to observe and set up, but time and time again, the all-stars behind the scenes are making this run, so shout out to Cimok, and shout out to Kashi in particular for helping run this one.
Absolutely super incredible team already for a game that is just like the esports scene in its infancy and constantly changing. It is far from easy, but they're making it look good. They're making it fantastic.
All right, well, let's look at how everything's settling. It actually looks like people are just kind of following their lane directives to a degree. One of the notable flip-flops is going to be there for Alchemical Flask. It's going to be Wraith versus Shiv over there on the left side, and then Pocket versus Lash. And I think this is a really smart call. Although Wraith can still kind of counter Lash engage, you have to be a little bit more timely with doing so, while Pocket could just go into Suitcase as a response to a crash down. Things are currently holding pretty stable right now. Mello just farming up minions. It's actually a very conservative start to the game compared to what we see out of some of the other turns. And I think part of this comes down to the fact that the teleport changes, the ability for camps to come up early and be farmable, but also the damage that the turrets do means that right now it's just a lot more risky to die, particularly because we had that earlier change where you can't speed boost back to lane. That combined with the lack of dive potential means that either side, even if you win a few health trades, doesn't necessarily lead to you cascading that into kills early on in this one. We're gonna see that camp dynamic I was talking about as well coming up quickly here. Mirage immediately hopping onto that.
Absolutely. Plenty of less aggressive ways, much safer ways to get. Nice little trade there with Donovan.
Absolutely. Yeah, one thing that hasn't changed is the value of getting a push advantage. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be knocking down the tower super quick, as was in the past when you could just kind of slide reset your ammo on the stairs. Now you have to get really up in there, and that's super dangerous against a lot of characters. But still, the priority to roam, the priority to pressure camps is still at a premium at this point in the game. That being said, cresting over the 10k soul mark for both sides, there's a very slight lead for Alchemical Flask, but it really isn't a whole lot.
No, the biggest thing is value of the buys for a lot of these characters. But without a sizable lead in our direction, the team power is going to stay pretty consistent. Donovan just harassing as much as possible.
Yeah, that being said, one thing that I love to do on Lash that a lot of people don't realize is still doable, even with how far back the zipline is set, is you can, if behind the wave, jump up on the zipline for elevation and then crash down if somebody is trying to hit your tower. And that is a real good way to like deter anybody, even a pocket, which does have that cooldown available. Speaking of cooldowns, one thing to note here is we got a few people beginning to crest over towards like 3k milestone where the ult comes out. In particular, Lady Geist there for Alchemical Flask is almost reaching that point. So we're going to see if Caleb is going to try to initiate anything with that advantage at hand. On the other side, though, the matchup is going to be Wick already getting there on the Mirage. So that teleport available across the map means that now Alchemical Flask has to approach fights a little bit more carefully.
Absolutely. A lot of, yeah, a lot of members of Edge Carpenters, especially Visc's getting very poked. Not, like you said, not, you don't have to be dying. Is really going to hurt, especially with First Blood falling in Caleb's pocket.
That was a great play by Alchemical Flask set up there with the 2 kills back to back. That is exactly what you need to begin to snowball this game because, like I said, a lot of these opportunities come from lag time in which you finally can inch up and actually hit that tower or go get your camps. It looks like right now it is going to be this lane going for the ladder dynamic here. Across the map, though, things still haven't snowballed out of control. Within 1k of one another, Magic Carpet Enjoyers hasn't lost too much just from that death. Really, I think it's a matter of first tower going down as being an indicator of who's in the lead, more so than who's getting the kills in the lane. Now, what you do with those kills is obviously going to be valuable, but I gotta say, soul distribution over to the side of Magic Carpet Enjoyers and Alchemical Flask both don't look too rough either way. We're gonna see Mamba activate the ultimate here, going deep now. Looking for an angle into enemy territory. Yeah, is able to tank up a lot of damage coming through from this tower. Great knockback, and that is going to be a solo bolo for the ages. And that shows what I was talking about as well during the draft phase, Blastmasters. Yes, Pocket is avoidant, as is the Wraith, but actually it's going to be the Wraith also getting beaten up here in a little bit of a 2v1 with Paradox coming in, using the P swap, and then Shiv getting that execution out. But it doesn't mean that Magic Carpet Enjoyers just got to sit back and let these players from Alchemical Flask walk away. There's still the ability to do immense damage, as we're also seeing coming out of the Bebop here. Alchemical Flask trying to fire back here, opening up upon the wave behind them. That means that you're going to continue to see a push into the tower. And while it doesn't look like right now Bebop is doing too much to knock down the Guardian, doesn't really matter because there's a lot of opportunity now for Lolo to roam. We've seen that they've moved from that solo lane to a duo, now just kind of bouncing back. Things are getting a little bit more free-flowing here as we crest over that 7-minute mark.
Yeah. Start of a lead on Alchemical Flask side. Despite that, though, far, far from big enough to completely toss Magic Carpenters out of the game. Are going to see an engage on the team up here, though. Nice bomb.
Yeah, solid uppercut as well. Paradox able to get back towards the tower still, and given how strong this Guardian now is, it means that you can't really go for a chase. That being said, Monkril gonna fall, traded back for the Lash on the other side here. Things still looking quite neck and neck here. And I gotta say, Blastmasters, this is, like I said, a rarity. I think that a lot of high-level teams go for aggression, bordering on over aggression, but here either side looking patient, trying to find an opportune moment to go in. The one exception to this could actually be the Viscous, who is going incredibly deep to try to avenge their side's loss of the Lash from earlier. That being said, they may have gone a little bit too deep on this one. Combo coming out from Mo and Krill, who now is going to give chase. That's a 3-stack on top of a Cube, who unfortunately is going to struggle to get on out of that situation. Taken to the skies, it doesn't matter. Mo and Krill pretty comfortable in the position they're currently at. You may note that in terms of the soul count, they're right there on par with everybody else. I would expect that eventually they will lag behind, just because this is one of the few characters on Alchemical Flask's side that need a ton of souls to be operational. Meanwhile, I want to see more focus upon getting farm over to the Pocket, who's sitting neck and neck with them. But good job already getting that Lady Geist ahead. At 7k count, that is the highest in the game that we see for either team.
Yeah, that's a character you wanted on. Although I really do like the picks, Mokrill and Bebop, just not trying to get results for themselves, but enabling the rest of the team. They can toss a bit more into their carries' pockets, like with Pocket and Lady Geist. You could absolutely set them up to just steamroll the rest of this.
Moving towards the 9-minute mark right now. There's a lot of camps available, yet still, I believe we have all Guardians of the game up. Maybe the one exception here is going to be all the way on that left lane where Shiv had that 2v1 go their way, and then therefore from that, they're able to knock it down. But outside of that, this is a relatively stable game state. And what that means is that I think earn runs are going to be at a premium, but simultaneously, these earn runs are going to be a little bit difficult to negotiate because people are still meeting neck and neck and wanting to attend to their towers. So we're probably going to be seeing this one go late, especially compared to some of these 9-minute, 15-minute bangers that I've casted in the past.
Oh wow, yeah, I'm fully expecting how close both the money and the operational skill is here from both teams. I fully expect this to take a bit to fully swing it out of team's direction because we've had both teams have had opportunities of building up a small lead, but neither one has been able to completely outpace the other. There's been plenty
Got
of
a little
rotation
bit of
going.
coalescence here upon this middle lane. Jord able to pick up the casting buff. That's really good. Hook gonna come out, so this could be a deep fight. Solid bomb placement as well, and that is going to be one Fong. The Paradox gone, but unfortunately Mo and Krill overextending, trying to find a flank on the back angle means that now Magic Carpet and Jords are going to continue to try to push forward. Alchemical Flask using the Bebop as suppressive fire, but it's not enough. That is going to be a delayed 3-4-2 at the back end of that fight, combined with those last few picks. Still, this isn't necessarily one win one way or the other. This could, though, go back in favor of Alchemical Flask if Kelvin could get this kill. But there's the fancy feet coming through. Out a wick on this Mirage. And now with Freeze Beam around the corner, they're still going to try to get out of this one. Sliding back, and we see the stability of the map pay dividends as they're back at Guardian. And that means now that Kelvin has to just walk away.
Yeah, start of a small lead to plus a whole lot more on Magic Carpet side. Beautifully played team fight. If they can keep it up with this, like, however, just getting caught there. Not quite. No,
Whoa!
never mind. Commentator's curse. My bad. I spoke heinous words.
That was really solid movement by Alchemical Flask, stacking, knowing that this earn is going to be a premium, and this is going to buy a lot of time for them to shove up. Now, it looks like Bebop is going to actually be designated as earn runner here. Question is, can they make the most of this situation? Wraith has been able to trade back the Guardian on the other lane. I believe that that is yellow, and what that means is that there's very much an opportunity here for Alchemical Flask to lock this one in, but I imagine this is going to be a major team fight, especially as we see already a 3-stack trying to encroach upon the walk path that Bebop wants to go through. Guardian going to be taken. The question is, how much more are we going to see Magic Carpet Enjoyers go for? This is going to be a deep engage. Kelvin coming through. Bebop going to rain upon Hellfire in the sky, and now with Kelvin continue to forge forward. That's going to be a pick onto the Mirage as well as the Paradox, set up fantastically for Alchemical Flask to not only get that earn, but in fact pick up kills and pick up objectives, as that is a 3 for nothing.
Absolutely. I love the play there from Excuses, just using the disarm bike as much time as possible for the rest of Alchemical Flask to rotate. It was just enough. Beautiful turnaround. Like I said, 3 kills again, building off this lead. Alchemical though starting with an already 6K ahead.
This is the biggest gap we've seen so far in terms of the soul count. That is just going to turn into more as Alchemical Flask. The Sapphire Flame is going to be able to deposit this. It's actually Kelvin who brings it over in the end. And I think this is good. That little extra injection of souls that you get for being the one on drop-off, putting it onto a character that is still supportive, but needs at least a little bit of stats to, I think, makes a lot of sense, given that they still haven't crested over 10k. But if we're going to look at individual soul counts here, I think name of the game has to be this Lady Geist for Alchemical Flask. Caleb is super far ahead of the curve right now, almost a full third up versus the likes of Lash and Hayes. And given that's the case, Alchemical Flask, I think, can really dial up the aggression here and make the most of the situation.
Absolutely. Between even the lower soul counts on their team are higher than the overall or on par with the highest on Magic Carpet Enjoyers. There's so much strength on these carry characters. As long as Alchemical Flask plays smart, they can absolutely run away with this.
I think that this is just going to be the end of Viscous, forced into cube by Bebop Ultimate. There's nowhere for the goo to go. They are just going to fall here, and we're going to see what that cascades into. Alchemical Flask attempting to aggress upon yet another lane here. Do you see the Bebop continuing to forge forward? Big Donovan, artillery fire from behind. Lash trying to clear the wave as best as possible. Big Donovan maybe slightly too deep now. Just going to go into Suitcase, trying to teleport on out of there. And now, once again, it's that aggro handoff. Kelvin now coming in, dealing that killing blow over to the Guardian, closing up that shop. And it really looks like at this point now, Chemical Flask have the ability to run away with it. And that
there's no getting
is
away.
A huge part of it right there. Lady Guys has been killed, but it's another 2-for-1, unfortunately. And so Magic Carpet Enjoyers are now getting shoved towards their base. If you look at the minimap, the presence right now for Alchemical Flask is immense. And this is a great time for them to start denying camps and perhaps even looking for a mid-boss.
Absolutely. 16k ahead. There's so much.
No.
And that's not gonna help.
Yeah, no, not at all. Jord, I was expecting to be a little bit more of a split pusher. Will not have to be that because Alchemical Flask is pushing up every single lane. That being said, you still are overextending here, and I think that's going to cascade not only into the Wraith dying, but also this Moat and Krill. Unfortunately, Excuses had nowhere to go, and so this is a little bit of a clawback. Magic Carpet Enjoyers still lost 2 in that process of trying to defend the Walker and then killing these guys. But given that you're going even while behind, I think that this is the best you can hope for, and this is quite valuable for Magic Carpet Enjoyers' side. It's giving the remaining members a little bit more time to begin to push up and try to maybe deny things like this urn, which is actually being grabbed right now by the Paradox. Meanwhile, that is going to be Viscous dying, unfortunately, so it is still a man advantage for Alchemical Flask, and now I think that the signal is for Magic Carpet Enjoyers that they got to get out of dodge and maybe look for a fight on this urn to try to get back into this one. That being said, they are down a significant amount of souls right now, about 17k, and that could just mean that any 6v6 is just going to fall apart for them. They aren't even getting that, actually. Viscous is still dead. I don't know if they have zipline boost available, but regardless, I think that Alchemical Flask may just be getting a free soul and urn delivery over to this side if this Paradox isn't careful.
Absolutely.
Uh-oh.
Big
combo.
Or massive combo. That's another member of the Magic Carpet down. Rest of Alchemical Flask stacking, getting ready to go for Walker. Need a wave for that. Even as strong as they are now, still don't want to risk setting all your health on fire.
But this is the value of Alchemical Flask having such lane prio. Sure, they don't have a wave, but what they do have is the urn that was gladly given to them by the Paradox, and that means that not only are you besieging the Walker, but you're also getting another big soul stack coming your way. Now, this is a deep engage. Haze and Lash both picked off. Lady Guy's dead yet again early on in this one, and Wraith could soon follow if they aren't careful. Good ultimate usage by this Viscous to try to get deep into the backline now. Wraith trying to fire right back, is able to extend past the length of the goo ball, and now with the hook on the Viscous, I think unfortunately that's just going to be another member of Magic Carpet Enjoyers going down. This is going to be near 4 off the map. That being said, great response here coming through from the Paradox off the hero play. Wraith overextending and overchasing alongside the Bebop in the pocket to try to find the Viscous, who manages to get the heck out of dodge. Finally a 1-5 by Magic Enjoyers, but it's too late to get the urn. Now the question is, what can they get in return?
Anything that's left around the map, yeah, they're gonna take this time, use these timer sets, scavenge for anything they can. I respect they are refusing to give up. They have slightly closed. They've managed to keep this lead from spiraling too far to control. Still sitting around 15k, but they're working with it. They're going even where they can. They're yoinking as much income as possible to try and stay competitive here.
And what's really good for their what's good for their side is that they do outscale with the Haze and the Shiv available. I really do think that a Magic Carpet Enjoyers can delay this, keep at least that one Walker up, or at least their shrines available. There is a chance that Alchemical Flask just gets run down at, say, the 25 to 30 minute mark in this one. And given that I said the pace of this game is relatively delayed, I do think that MCE have a shot and a clear win condition beginning to develop.
Yeah, Alchemical Flask, from what I'm noticing, they're playing this great, but in every one of these fights, they get a little too confident. They think they can already just completely run riot, and MCE have been punishing them. If Alchemical Flask keep funneling the gold, like you said, Jiv, the Ace, to the rest of this team, which just gets stronger and stronger on Magic Carpet side, this could absolutely spiral out of their control.
Absolutely the case. Now, right now, we are going to just see a kind of lull period where everybody is farming back up. Waves are about to meet in the middle that could lead to a clash one way or the other, but without the urn being an objective, I think that nobody really wants to pull the trigger. Because Alchemical Flask, they saw that last fight begin to show MCE jumping over the edge of them in regards to their ability to 6v6 if they aren't careful. But simultaneously, Magic Carpet enjoyers do not want to throw this lull state where they are able to get equivalent soul income to Alchemical Flask even while down objectives on the map away. That being said, I may have spoken too soon. This is actually going to be an engage by Mo and Krill deep in enemy territory. Multiple ults being fired out. Bebop once again getting that suppressive fire from the skies. It's still going to be a matter of Alchemical Flask looking for picks though. That's Mirage dead early in this one, and with the bomb sacks, God, how did 4 members just get deleted? Oh, that is heartbreaking. Alchemical Flask just going to turn the game on a dime yet again and bring it convincingly right back into their favor. That is going to be that last walker going down, and we may even see a call to move towards the mid boss.
I expected, yeah, they're already stacking for it. They're getting ready. Just MCE, like you said, we're trying to play around this, and a beautiful engage coming out from excuses. The couldn't quite secure the kills originally, but the rest of Alchemical Flash showed up, popped. Like you
Oh,
said,
dear.
4 members of Magic Carpet just gone. Building off that, securing the Rejuvenator. This next fight could be the last one.
That being said, Magic Carpet enjoyers are doing a decent job of keeping all their lanes slightly pushed out. That being said, that could lead to overextensions. That's what we're seeing right now. Viscous maybe too deep in enemy territory, trying to get away. Great air movement here to buy a lot of space between them and the Moan Krill alongside the Kelvin. But now they got 3 members of the Sapphire Flame breathing down their necks. Well, you see the juke movements. They are now
Actually,
at incredibly low health
managed
here.
to get out. Beautiful
Yeah.
movement by Mamba, completely throwing off the pursuers.
Yeah, great stuff by them. That being said, Alchemical Flask has that priority yet again by taking a member virtually out for a little bit. That's going to lead to an earn run here. We're going to see whether or not Magic Carpet enjoyers will have the ability to engage Pocket high in the sky right now, looking for the artillery fire. That is a Mirage picked off early, who's really just run out of utility in this game. Bebop continuing to just make sure that Magic Carpet enjoyers can't poke their heads out. And so with another man advantage, Alchemical Flask, especially with the Rejuvenator up, are able to play as aggressive as they want. As once again, well, this is a familiar sight. That's going to be the combo dropped onto the Viscous. And this time, the Goo Ball cannot get away, will be shoved into a corner. And now there's a big wave heading towards the base Guardians. And while this is happening, Bebop has got that urn and is looking to deposit it.
And Mamba's movement been so on point, but Alchemical Flask from the beginning have had their number. They just open arms catching, and like you said, one of the only ways that Magic Carpet has been able to stay into this game is by pushing out these lanes, is by keeping as much pressure off them as they can afford. But it's coming back to bite them. That's both entry Guardians down on Magic Carpet Enjoyer's side. Alchemical Flask trying not to overextend here, but applying as much pressure as they can.
And this is not what Magic Carpet enjoyers wanted to see, such as in the base, accelerating the game state. I really wasn't expecting this to happen at only 22 minutes into this one, but now it really is looking like this could be the end of the road. Only one shrine yet available. Viscous trying to find what they can off the ultimate. Unfortunately, they are just going to be denied any utility here, as the healing from Alchemical Flask's Kelvin remains strong, and as a 6-stack, they are just going to move over to this last thing necessary to open this patron up.
You were saying Magic Carpet Enjoyers team scales so hard. Alchemical Flask completely understands that. They do not want to let this game go on for any longer than they have to. Both shrines popped. There goes the patron, and now Magic Carpet Enjoyers backs into the wall.
Still a few opportunities to try to make this happen. Unfortunately, you're down 50k souls, and that is enough to ensure that in any fair fight, you're probably losing. What we're now looking for is something like maybe a Lash ult to throw everybody into your spawn. Maybe you're looking at a paradoxical swap to get one of these choicey members of Alchemical Flask way too deep. Maybe this Lady Geist is going to be the apple of your eye, because they are currently at a whopping 35k, and you're about to make that more as they're going to continue to take camps.
Magic Carpenters need to go full Rambo. They need complete guerrilla tactics, pounce on anyone on Alchemical Flask side who overextends even a little bit. But as we've seen, they've tried that time and time again. But like you said, with the way that the money's looking, if they need to play this perfectly for the rest of the game. One mistake is going to spell the end of it, and they don't want to go to game 2 yet. The longer this game goes, the better it looks for Magic Carpenters.
That being said, what I really like is that Alchemical Flask isn't just pushing for no reason, right? They are playing this patiently, looking for angles to pick people, and then they're going to shove back into enemy territory. What this means is that Magic Carpenters has to venture out of the base in order to continue to farm waves, lest they just be choked out across the map, and that's going to give plenty of opportunities to take people low. We saw just how dangerous it was for that Shiv hit by the Wraith ultimate, as now Pocket is going to go worryingly low for the side of Alchemical Flask, manages to get out of there, and meanwhile,
Paradox
is
Pixel
not nearly as comfortable of a
to get out.
situation, and that's going to be both the haze and the Lash going down. That's going to be enough for game number 1 to be picked up here by Alchemical Flask. What a great showing to start off this best of 3.
Absolutely just phenomenal. That's exactly what I want to see. The clear communication on Alchemical Flask side. Every little mistake for Magic Carpet was pounced on and torn apart. We saw some fantastic play from them early. It was back and forth for, like we said, a good 12 minutes. Neither team really getting the opportunity to. But it's what you were saying. The game state is absolutely teetering on the brink, and then as soon as one team can really draw blood proper, it's very easy to just snowball off it.
Yeah, I really do think it was a matter of over-indexing into a single play a little bit too early for the Amber Hand, and Magic Carpet Enjoyers lost everything during one single fight. Bebop had the bomb stacks, got everybody low, blew multiple people up at once, and from there it cascaded into the Rejuvenator being taken. And while there have been changes, Blastmaster, to emphasize later rejuves, the first one is not necessarily the end of the game. When you look at how watertight the overall plan was for the Sapphire Flame, it makes a lot of sense that Alchemical Flask came out on top there. Now, the question is, will they be able to make Lightning Strike twice and do the same for a second game? Let's look at the stats over here. Something to note is that even though Caleb was hoovering up plenty of those kills as well as plenty of those souls, Big Donovan came through clutch, pumping out tons of damage on this Pocket pick, who was really basically unkillable throughout the vast majority of the fights, and that's what really brought a ton of value over to the side of the Sapphire Flame. Mo and Krill was able to dive on in there, get the pesky members that could dive the Pocket out of the way, and that opened up a full streak by which the Sapphire Flame won 3 fights back-to-back, took the towers, took the base, and that was all they wrote for the patron and the ritual.
Absolutely. The entirety of Sapphire Flame side did a great job pressuring. As soon as they got that lead, they completely ran away from it. Like, looking back at the stats and the everything again, Sample on the Haze had no chance to do any real damage. And damage, aside from Big Donovan absolutely crushing it, was pretty consistent across the board for Alchemical Flask. Everybody was doing their jobs, communicating properly, just working together, and it shows. It was a complete stomp.
Yeah, that being said, there's certainly ways by which, if we saw the Amber Hand state their Amber Hand, what we could do is see a game where they go for another draft identity that is really built upon scaling, and they just don't take a few of those fights, Blastmaster. This could radically change the complexion of a game like this, and so I really don't think that even as we look at a 1-0 score in favor of Alchemical Flask, that Magic Carpet Enjoyers are out of this one just yet. They got Enjoyers in their name, and we've talked about Buff Enjoyers. They got a pedigree. The Enjoyers teams do darn well for themselves. So we're going to throw it over to a quick break, and when we return, it's going to be for the second draft of the night.
We spent our days on the coast of something beautiful. We got pulled into the tide of something real. But somehow I lost you on the way. I assumed you left me behind. Lifeless days and sleepless nights, so tired of it. I can't get you off my mind, can't forget it. Now I know what I've got to do is find my way back to you. Hey, oh, why did it take us so long? Hey, oh, while I was dancing on my own. Hey, oh, and now my prayers get answered in my darkest time. 'Cause now I found you. I was waiting on the day you would come back to me, hoping that I didn't burn a bridge I couldn't see. And now that you're by my side again, I'll never leave you behind. Lifeless days and sleepless nights, so tired of it. I can't get you off my mind, can't forget it. Now I know what I've got to do is find my way back to you. Hey, oh, why did it take us so long? Hey,
Bet you never know. Say we have the power, but there's things we touch the road. Tell them say we ready, clip them on the cut she load. Should know say we no regular. Anything we ready for. Bet you never know. Bet you never know. Nah go take no talk, I beg no pardon, that's for sure. Bet you never know. Bet you never know. How we are like the badness, we are like the globe. Bet you never know. Bet you never know. How we are like the badness, we are like the globe.
Hello, friends, and welcome back as we are about to move into the second game of First Strike 2 Strike Again qualifiers matchup between Magic Carpet Enjoyers and Alchemical Flask. I'm Nyarko here with Blastmaster once again, and we are currently in a position where Alchemical Flask has moved up to the 1-0 bracket here in this best of 3. Blastmaster, what does Magic Carpet Enjoyers need to do to bring this one back?
I think overall, I think the biggest thing they need to do, Alchemical Flask was shown as well, is just fight off the urge to go too deep. The biggest thing we're seeing was in these chases and these fights, they were getting a little desperate, it seemed, to really start the snowball for a concrete lead. And every time it just ended up with a trip and a hard punish from Alchemical Flask. That's the only reason Alchemical Flask got as strong as they did. And while Magic Carpet Enjoyer did a great job kind of stemming the flow, after enough of those, it's nigh impossible to bring it back. So I really want to see Magic Carpet bring it back, though. I liked their play in the early phases of Game 1. I liked their picks. I'm excited to see who they end up picking, if there's any real changes this time. But yeah, no, I'm just very excited to get into the second game, because I don't think it's going to be second verse. But Alchemical Flask has clearly shown the ability to just completely run away with these. Of course, it's going to start with the bans if we're going to see any kind of shakeup. I'm not really expecting one. I don't think there was any character in particular to blame for last game, but
Yeah, I would agree with that. Even people who were problematic in regards to their kills and their farm weren't the ones doing the most damage, right? So the lady guys, while a problem, maybe wasn't as big of a problem as, say, the pocket was for the side Alchemical Flask. One thing to note here is we do get a side swap. That isn't really going to matter for in-game, as this isn't like League of Legends where there's a delineated change between red versus blue side. Instead, it is just going to be the fact that during this draft order, it is going to be Magic Carpet Enjoyers over on the right, while Alchemical Flask is taken to the left. And so Donovan, from that side, who had piloted the pocket last time, will be in charge of the draft for Flask, and they're going to knock out the Infernus to start us off.
yeah, never mind. Completely different bans. Immediately, yeah, Kelvin knocked out. I'm almost not surprised. The Kelvin gave a mountain of value last game.
Mm-hmm.
But I am a little surprised by the Infernus ban. Immediately, we're going to see Chemical Flask use the chance to lock in that 7.
Yeah, it is interesting to see this Infernus ban come out, because what we saw last game was that out of the 2 hyperscalers that exist on the front of doing damage at range, doing damage over time, we have the choice between the Haze and the Infernus. And it was the Haze that was selected even without the Infernus being something that was denied, picked by the other side or whatever. So I'm interested as to why we are seeing Alchemical Flask ban that out. Regardless, they were going to get the 7 that was banned in game number 1. Meanwhile, it is going to be Alchemical Flask having to answer back against a Lady Geist and a Shiv for Magic Carpet Enjoyers. So this is a little bit of a shakeup here. Of course, it was Lady Geist that was in the hands of Alchemical Flask in game number 1. Now it's going to be a Paradox to pair up with that 7.
Yeah, again, 7, such a strong, such an ever-present character in all levels of play for Deadlock. I'm not at all surprised to see the immediate lock-in on Alchemical Flask's side. Moving in on their 3rd, I almost wonder if they're gonna kind of double down with the 90% damage backed up by like a big beefy tank.
Instead, it's going to be this McGinnis. That was also one of the bans from game number 1. I like this call. 7 plus McGinnis is ultimate tower teardown because you throw your electro balls and you drop McGinnis ults, and basically any of these guardians are going to fall. Those walkers similarly can be shredded in an instant here. So this is something to watch out for. If we do in fact see Alchemical Flask win early game fights, this is maybe even going to be over faster than what we saw in game number 1. Now, Magic Carpet enjoyers, who now are on the right side like I was talking about, are going back towards scaling, but they do have this really solid engager and an enabler in the form of the Viscous coming out.
Yeah, we're seeing them yoink the Shiv. Again, like we talked about. I do like the 7 McGinnis lock-in. Surely because obviously 7 whole lot of AoE. McGinnis, just aside from the sheer amount of damage, that wall is so much like unique value and so much crowd control. Like boxing anybody on Magic Carpet side in could be devastating. We are going to see again the Pocket, who gave so much damage, like the unsung hero of last game.
Yep, I agree with that. This Pocket is an immensely valuable pick for the side of Alchemical Flask. And right now, I gotta say, Blastmaster, even early on, I'm kind of favoring what they're picking over what Magic Carpet enjoyers are grabbing. Now, I do think that they need a tank. They need a facilitator in order to really bring it home. But given that the Mo and Krill is still on the board, I do think that right now Magic Carpet enjoyers are in an awkward position as to what to pick here on their 4th slot. A lot of concentration going into this one. Ivy was considered in the last game. We're going to see whether or not this time it is going to be grabbed. It will, in fact, be confirmed. This is cool. Now, the question is, what do you do alongside it? Now, obviously, you can't do an IV-7 combo where you're flying around with a 7 on your back. You can't necessarily go for something like the McGinnis, which also has that same kind of value. Maybe a Lash could be the answer here for the side of Magic Carpet enjoyers. That was something they locked in last time, but it wasn't really used to great effect. But regardless,
maybe you'll finally get your absolute top rope dive from the Lash. Again, Ivy is a great utility, but that's what she is. 90% of it is just utility. She can enable characters to be absolutely insane, and that's why I'm super curious to see who Magic Carpet enjoyers is going to choose to enable. Mo and Krill locked in once again on Alchemical Flask side. Gave a lot of value last time, so not at all surprised.
I am interested to see that the meta seems to have shifted away from the likes of Dynamo being this kind of mass crowd control, and instead people have been focusing upon the likes of Mo and Krill for this single-use crowd control on a big person from the enemy team. I really do think that given how hectic a lot of Deadlock fights are, this makes a lot of sense because it's usually one big move from a single player that is initiating the whole house. But at the same time here, I do think that Alchemical Flask could benefit from getting multiple people tied up at once. I could actually see the Lash being the last pick for them on that front because of it. But we're going to move back over to the side of Magic Carpet enjoyers really quick because they're going to be grabbing that hyper carry in the form of the Haze. And so they're still looking at the scaling game plan to a degree, but now they have a little bit more of a ramp up to it late game as they have the Lady Geist early to bully people. But Shiv, Haze, this is going over the top of anything right now coming out of Alchemical Flask.
Great talent. Okay.
Ooh, interesting. I don't know how I feel about this one. I think that while he has been adjusted time and time again, Blastmaster, at the end of the day, Grey Talon is still, from a kit perspective, one of the weakest characters in the game. But it is, in fact, going to be picked up here. There is a delineated front to back on the side of Alchemical Flask that could help this character actually get pot shots in. But I am worried about their overall capacity to make a mark in this game. Maybe the one thing to note here is that when he takes to the skies, there's not much in the way of responses coming out of MCE, because a lot of these guys are very much grounded characters, or their air movement is usually for another purpose in the form of, say, Ivy.
No, absolutely. There is a lot of frontline on the side of Magic Carpet enjoyers, but like you were saying, Deadlock is so much about, especially we saw a perfect showcase in that last game about the isolation, about one like locking out one member, popping them, moving on to the next. Losing one person could be such a massive swing for a fight that I do like I like the Viscous, I like the Warden. I think that's going to be a lot of help against the sheer amount of damage on Alchemical Flask side. But I don't know if it's going to be enough. We're going to have to see.
Yeah, I don't want to be pessimistic by getting my opinions colored from game number 1 in regards to MCE, because I do think they had the potential to carry that game and bring it home as long as they extended the fights and extended the clashes just a little bit. But it does feel like right now a Chemical Flask is coming away with a preferable composition, and given their history, this could be a 2-0 locked in an instant. So I'm going to leave it up to this laning phase to really see how I feel about this one, Blastmaster. If this lady guys can get ahead for the opposite side this time, I really do think that there is a dynamic by which MCE can take us to a game number 3. But I'm going to lean in on Alchemical Flask and say right now, they're the ones that I'm favoring to win this here and now to push towards qualifying for First Strike 2.
Yeah, no, they've got the potential. They've already shown that they can execute on it. It's just going to be up to how Magikarp Enjoyers responds. I fully believe, just from what we saw at the start of last game, that they can swing this, that they can build up their own lead and kind of turn this around. Again, like you said, they're really playing for that kind of late game power spike, but they've got to get there is the biggest thing.
Yeah, definitely. And I do think that there is a matter of learning lessons as well as just adjusting to play style that could help them in this case. In many games, you see that the longer that you play against someone, the better that scaling becomes, because you get to see the ways that they cheese for kills earlier, the way that they play for pressure early. While the late game is almost always going to be more of a high variance activity, and therefore that is something that people are less learned about, and so getting there could be a boon for your side. But this is a two-way street. It goes one way or the other here. So as we move on into this game number 2, it's really all coming down to this. Can Magikarp bring this back is the question. As you see on the scoreboard right now, it is Alchemical Flask that leads the series, and this is a best of 3.
Really calm before the storm. Good amount of poke coming out on both sides. Lolo and Mamba both contend good bit. Mamba very low, actually.
Yep, always good to get these trades started early. Mamba on this haze has to be in a duo lane, but if they take a rough trade, they can be out of commission for a while. This is just not the time in which Haze can do a whole lot, especially given the fact that they are currently paired up with the Viscous, who can do burst damage with items, but right now is not in a position to do a ton. Maybe if you get something like Sleep Knife into a punch, you can do something, but you gotta worry about Wick also going kind of low here in these initial trades.
Excuses chasing, looking for this kill, catching Mamba out. Can't quite.
Oh, the leap!
A little bit more.
This is a lot of time being spent, and Excuses taking
Guardian
walker damage. Yeah, this is a rough position to be in. Now, Great Talon in a tough place. 3 members at their back, trying to get to safety, moving through mid-boss here.
See the rotates.
Covering fire, that's going to be enough for First Blood to go over to the side of Magikarp Enjoyers. And so, Alchemical Flask have to also be very cognizant about what they're doing in a game like this. Just because they won game number 1 doesn't mean you can get overconfident, and that is a backbreaking set of plays there, actually. Magikarp Enjoyers get a lot more time during the laning phase itself. They pull the Great Talon away from actually getting farm, and this character needs a lot of stats. And look at what's happening. Mo and Krill is more than double the farm of their lane partner right now. That is not something you want to see. Although, I guess if you look at the map, Mo and Krill's actually moved over to solo lane and trying to match up against this Shiv.
No, like you're saying, the stumbles we saw from Alchemical Flask last game were them getting overconfident and overextending. They can very much not afford to do that this early up against Magikarp Enjoyers. And a beautiful rotates from MCE, punishing that real quick. They've got the chance. They've got the opening to start snowballing here. Just got to perform.
Now, if Great Talon can keep this deficit about where it is, or in fact bring it back, this is still not backbreaking. But Alchemical Flask also needs to make the most of this laning phase, and right now, being behind, even if it is still within 1,000 soul striking distance one way or the other, doesn't bode well for that team that, like I said, isn't going to fare as well during the late game. And so this is the time in which you are the strongest. This is the time in which to strike. And if you aren't able to make the most out of a lane that you are trading well against, that's a tough situation to be in. That being said, outside of this Great Talon lane, what we are seeing is value being brought from elsewhere here. That is a McGinnis in pocket being able to mow down a Warden, forcing the Ivy real far back here, and now the waves are beginning to crest and crash upon this Guardian.
Yeah, a lot of good early pressure coming out. Souls are still like super even. Alchemical Flask managing to keep it that way. Great Talon isn't even too far behind. Mamba is also still pretty low relatively when it comes to the souls here.
Now, this is a little bit of an interesting rotation. It was Seven making his way over to farm the small camp all the way there in the right lane. Hayes actually follows the rotation, invisible waiting in the wings. No play to be had one way or the other, though, and so things look like they're going to stabilize. One thing to note is that leaving Great Talon alone could be a little bit scary. Luckily, the matchup right now is against Viscous when you do have those rotations come out, and it is a 1v1. So it's very, very difficult for the Viscous to deal with a character moving in there, even just because their gun's primary fire isn't super great at contending with a fast-moving character.
Absolutely. You know, try to push up this wave as much as possible. Just any small lead here. Mamba gets caught by, and Excuses gets the kill. That's beautiful. Excuses is hard back in the game now.
Yeah, definitely. And this haste still has accelerated the game state just a little bit. They actually have the most farm on the team, even though they are dead and just now coming back to the lane. But fact of the matter is that it isn't a huge gap. Hayes needs to keep this pace up, if not increase their soul income, in order to be relevant, given the timeline that Magic Carpet enjoyers want this game to be played at. Alchemical Flask have the potential now to really make the most of a situation where they're up about 2,500 to 3,000 souls. And this early on into the game, that is not insignificant. This is a multiple 500 item stack favor for their side, depending on how these fights and rotations go across the map. Right now, we are seeing a mass of people moving over to that left side here. Mo and Krill in a 2v1. Looks like Pocket and McGinnis are trying to make their way over to this one. The Mole people getting back towards the Guardian in time, and now here comes the fire from over the wall. McGinnis ultimate going to be expended here. Looks like the Ivy will be able to get to safety. The question is, what is the Shiv going to do in response to this one? Less than half health right now on Mo and Krill, but the Shiv is even lower. Just trying to play hide and seek to get out of the situation inside the juke closet. Mo and Krill going to cross around the far side. Warden going to drop on in, trying to control this team, but unfortunately they cannot save the Shiv. And now the question is, can the cop get out of the situation as well? It looks like with how low Pocket is going, that is going to be Alchemical Flask finally backing off, but that's another favorable fight going in favor of the Amber Hand.
Yeah, absolutely. Alchemical Flask getting these small victories, but that's all it takes. These keeps happening. First Guardian, no, not first, but another Guardian down.
And we're in a position right now where this is actually a little bit more drastic of a situation than what we found ourselves in game number 1. And so Magic Carpet needs to staunch this bleeding quite quickly. 4K is still not the end of the world, but moving towards that 7-minute mark, moving towards this point where now you have a bunch of camps up, you can see this jump dramatically as long as Alchemical Flask keeps priority on these lanes, and therefore are actually able to rotate over and begin to farm all of the standing gold.
Absolutely. You're trying to secure that kill on Lady Geist. Just barely can't. She's going to get out. But that leaves the Guardian with no one to defend it. Oh. That grenade will help, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Lady Guy's damage early is no joke. That's actually going to help push this wave back as well. And so this is an angle. Hayes going to come in here. Sleep Dart available. Not going to be able to drop down on the 7. Movement speed already stacking up for this character. That is something to note here. But regardless, Magic Carpet are going to be able to prevent a deeper shove from this lane. Lady Guy's back in it now.
Moan Kriller
down.
down.
Buy up. Look for one last defense here.
Another
Crow
pick
does
for
fall,
Magic
yeah,
Carpet.
like you're talking about. So that is something for Magic Carpet to play off of now. They are not losing any more in regards to the soul count. In fact, they're actually trying to bring this one back very slightly. See what happens here. This is going to cascade into a fight now. Deep approach from Pocket, looking to try to flank upon Shiv as well as this Ivy. Maybe it goes a little bit too deep here. Caleb in a lot of trouble, just going to get bowled over. I don't know what the call was in that case here, because Blastmaster, there was just nobody around in order to support. I guess maybe he thought 7 could follow up, but there was nothing to do to really follow the maneuverability that Pocket has, and that's gonna be Magic Carpet continuing to claw back. In fact, they have closed that soul lead quite a bit now, only down about 1,000, and this could be their ticket into the late game.
Yeah, that over aggression, almost securing that kill, could have absolutely snowballed again for Pocket, but no, properly playing together over there on Magic Carpet. Able to staunch the flow a bit, just about evened up. Still a little behind, but not enough for it to really matter.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what I do want to note is that as soon as we see a reversion away from like these big fights and we just go back to the standard farming pathways that people are using, something that we saw at Alchemical Flask time and time again was that they were really good at their timers. They were just getting real value out of knocking down camps left, right, and center. And that's why it wasn't just the kills Lady Geist was able to get to, that whopping 35, 37k milestone near the end of the game, right? And so I am a little bit worried about Magic Carpet if they do bring this late, still being too far behind to contend if there's these multiple eras of peace and they don't get their act together on that farming front. Now, right now it looks like they're doing a decent job of answering back and forth, but this is before a lot of the Guardians fall and before you get that real dramatic shift in the contours of the map. Gonna have Hazel committed here. Paradox in a lot of trouble.
Wow!
Swap, trying to get out of the situation. And in fact, they turn it right back around with the help of their team. Absolute madness.
Insane,
and that's
rotate
Pocket
by
redeeming themselves. Yeah, from earlier, we're criticizing that over aggression, but here that is a 2-for-0, saving a very over-invested Pocket in a great situation now. Alchemical Flask have the potential to maybe go for either a tower or cascade this into an urn call. It looks like Paradox is too low. They're going to have to back off for the time being. And meanwhile, it's Magic Carpet investing multiple people over here to catch the wave.
Yeah, I mean, say what you want. Pocket smells blood, they smell blood. Putting a lead very slightly back in Alchemical Flask's favor. Again, all it takes is for them to get this and then keep it up. Can't play too dangerously, though. You're going to see just some general harass coming after the Great Talon. Bit of a chase. The stun is going to pop on Lady Geist. That might be enough. Swap through the wall. She's
Here comes
down.
the 7 ult.
McGinnis for covering fire.
And this is going to be enough to take this Guardian here, but notably, this is also the Amber Hand getting priority to get the Urn run going. That is going to be Pocket on it to begin, and Magic Carpet losing the Lady Geist there means that now they're going to have to try to go for a full rotation across the map in order to stop this big boon of souls going the way of Alchemical Flask. And on top of that, look at the 4-stack. Amber Hand all the way on this far side. Walker looking to take this one down here while still maintaining push lanes, means that they're in a great position now to swing right back around, and as long as they can push out and catch what we see all the way on the left, and it looks like Moan Krill's doing that, this could be enough for a very definitively to be established here.
Absolutely, so much pressure coming out from that right lane now. Chemical Flash doing whatever they can to kind of just split Magic Carpet's attention. We see that slowly just widening further and further, just under 5k now. Except if they can get the ball rolling, if they can keep going with this, especially if they get that solar, then this could be the beginning of the end for Magic Carpet. They've just got to stick with it.
Magic Carpet knows the stakes, though. They are going to bring multiple people over here to try to stop this urn drop from happening. That being said, I don't know why they're indexing Lady Geist and Haze on the same lane. It looks like Lady Geist is going to take the teleporter over, but is it too late is the question at hand here. With a big push forward, Shiv is looking for an angle. Pocket is worryingly low, going to get picked off early in this one. Ivy taking to the skies, looking for a response. Shiv going to be taken out, unfortunately. So we're back to a 5v5 scenario here. 7 looking for a new angle, pinging out the Lady Geist as perhaps an answer. Meanwhile, it's going to be Haze, Viscous shoving the far side lane, and meanwhile, looks like they're going to concede this fight in kind. That being said, McGinnis is picked off here. Magic Carpet could get enough across the map for this to be worth it, especially with the Moan Krill also going down. Great stuff for the other side. They're actually going to get a walker for this, and I gotta say, that Blastmasters feels like a way to stabilize. In fact, they have the soul lead.
No, absolutely. A beautiful series of plays coming out from Magic Carpet. Is exactly what they need, Nyarko, to, like I said, not only keep in it, but actually yoink the lead away from Alchemical Flask. Again, it's not big enough to completely switch the tempo of the match, but they're at a point where this is their opening to swing it, if they can keep this up.
That almost felt like that big fight that won Alchemical Flask in game number 1, especially where it went long. People thought that they had an initial advantage, but it turned into cooldowns for the other side that allowed for multiple people to fall in succession. Now, this isn't going to lead to something as dramatic. We're a little bit earlier on in the game. Now, the walkers haven't all been taken yet. We aren't going to see the mid-boss fall, but what a way to get a scaling team ahead early in this one. And at only 14 minutes, it's now Alchemical Flask that has to be a lot more choosy about the battles that they choose to take. Next urn run could put Magic Carpet significantly ahead if they coordinate well.
Oh, absolutely. Again, but like the lead wasn't crazy enough. Evening it up now. And Thaw's gonna try and get out here. He's getting chased a bit. Back is covered.
And it looks like things are going to calm down once again. Something to note here is that in situations like this, where I think Alchemical Flask still has that kind of generalized macro and map control advantage on their side, it means that even if they are even on souls, the fact that you can calculate where you are relative to the enemy team versus a game like League of Legends where gold is something you just have to kind of estimate means that you know exactly when to ease off the gas pedal, and that's what we're seeing out of Alchemical Flask. That being said, conceding that casting boon is rough. That's about 3,000 worth of stats just given to free over to, I believe, the Ivy for Magic Carpet.
Absolutely. Big damage to the owl as well.
7 in trouble, gonna just get blown up in an instant here. Great stuff. The Shiv is beginning to get out of control without this member of the fight available. I think Alchemical Flask once again just have to cede pressure over to the side of Magic Carpet, as now the Sapphire Flame are looking to pick this urn up. Pocket forced off of this one. Great Talon going down. That is a 2-for-0 Magic Carpet. Continue to be dominant in this one, perhaps running away with it at this point as they're going to try to push upon another walker.
Absolutely. Beautiful stuff from Magic Carpet. Again, though, like the advantage that the map pressure gives. After all that, just barely now a lead has sparked in Magic Carpet's favor. And they're trying to make something of it. They're trying to take these Guardians, take these Walkers, give themselves a concrete, feasible lead. Alchemical Flask trying to put a stop to that.
Viscous has the urn. Gonna drop it, hand it off. Actually, Ivy looks like they're gonna be the ones to try to transport it, flying on over to the far side of the map. Not a whole lot of pressure or presence available right now for Alchemical Flask. We're getting shoved in on multiple lanes. That being said, Paradox still gonna try to rotate over to this one. I think that this ultimately just has to be concession out of the Amber Hand,
Absolutely.
especially given the 4-stack that's already over here. Paradox, though, gonna wait in the wings here. Got to be careful of doing so. They don't have a whole lot of map presence. No Walker nor Guardian behind them, and Shiv right now is on the prowl, certainly in a position to just take it to almost anybody on the enemy team. Again, it's gonna fire off ultimate here, just gonna force the Viscous away. Fortunately, you just can't track fast enough what the Viscous is doing if they're moving fluidly in their ultimate, so This is something that I'm a little bit worried about. It actually kind of feels like McGinnis hasn't been fully leveraged at this point in the game. We've seen multiple walkers fall to stabilize versus Magic Carpet, but I'm not seeing a huge map advantage for Alchemical Flask due to lanes pushing and things like that. And so maybe it's a matter of winning another fight for the Amber Hand to be able to act the value of McGinnis to its fullest extent. But right now, I gotta say, I'm kind of underwhelmed by this pick.
Yeah, it's not seeing the monument value you or I are expecting from it. That really is the 7. Almost best, almost most souls on the team, but we haven't really seen anything explosive from Alchemical. This match, Magic Carpet have done a great job kind of keeping them under lock. But you can already tell if they let up on Alchemical Flask, they know how quickly this could spiral out of control.
It's about a 9,000 soul lead over to Magic Carpet right now. And so, like you said, a lot of pressure from Magic Carpet needs to continue to be applied in order to ensure that we get to a decisive game number 3. Now, I do think that the golden era early is beginning to fall away for our Alchemical Flask in terms of their team composition. And it's not giving a whole lot to their side, right? Like, Magic Carpet came out in this early game definitively ahead, even if it wasn't by the biggest margin we've ever seen. But we will get a power spike a little bit later here if Great Talon is able to find any amount of farm. One thing that I'm like continuously worried by is the fact that this is a character that needs stats, and very rarely in competitive play gets those stats. Currently, they are the least fed on the entirety of the team, even Moan Krill is slightly ahead of them. And that worries me, you know. Alchemical Flask doesn't have that many souls to spare at this point in time. Looks like we are getting a fight on the far side lane now. Again, it's going to try to follow on over to this one, but that was a tactical bombing set up by the Ivy and company to immediately take the 7 down. And so even as the McGinnis ult is popped and the artillery barrage comes out, that's not going to turn into much of anything for the Amber Hand. In fact, Alchemical Flask are also going to lose the Paradox on the back end of that one, and there's nowhere for this haste to go as a response, but a 1 for 2 is not going to bring this team back into equivalency. They're still down 10k souls.
Absolutely. We're not seeing at this point from Magic Carpet enjoyers the absolute like steamroll blob that we saw last time from Alchemical Flask in the first game, but we are seeing very, very tactical, smart individual picks that are slowly allowing them to snowball out of control here. They just are constantly playing very well on overextensions from Alchemical Flask, rotating, punishing accordingly, and then the biggest thing is not overstaying their welcome. Also, stacking those buffs is really going to help.
Oh, yeah. Both of them picked up great coordination on timing. Magic Carpet actually showing that this weakness that I thought I had identified in their game plan actually isn't present. It was just the fact that they were so pushed in last game that we didn't get to see their macro shine. But here, look at the rotation timings. Getting those neutral objectives is so important for a squad that has already established for themselves a significant stat lead through the souls that they have an advantage. That is just going to turn into more, as now we are going to see an earn run activated by the side of Alchemical Flask. Maybe a little bit of desperation here, as there's a lot going on right now on this internal lane. 4-person pusher Magic Carpet to try to get this walker, going to finally be rejected here by the 7 and company, but they are happily able to rotate over, trying to collapse upon an overextended McGinnis now, who's in an awkward position. Luckily gets on the zipline in time. It doesn't actually get knocked off of it, but still, that is Magic Carpet ready, waiting in the wings, looking for this Paradox to approach for the good fight around the urn.
It's gonna be tight.
McGinnis wall to start us off. Paradox just trying to go on the retreat for the time being. Earn still not deposited, still currently in the clutches of the Amber Hand, but is that going to turn into much of anything when you already lost Moan Krill alongside McGinnis? Kudzu Bomb from afar doing so much work to slow the retreat of Alchemical Flask, as now they're going to lose the pocket on top of it. And once again, you see a situation where everything is going belly up. That was a desperation ultimate activated by the 7, but Magic Carpet is able to tank through it. It's going to be a 2 for 4 in favor of the Sapphire Flame. They're going to get Earn on top of that and continue to extend their soul lead.
Security yet we're seeing Lady Gesh Great Talon try put a stop to that, but
oh, might actually get it here. A little bit of a sneaky sneak.
It's gonna be a tight escape though.
Manages to get out. Great accompaniment. So I spoke too soon. Alchemical Flask with a bit of consolation prize here. That's actually going to tighten the soul gap immensely. What in the world just happened? They're bouncing on a knife's edge. That could be enough for Alchemical Flask to say, we got a shot in this mid game.
Yeah, beautiful stuff from Great Talon. Getting that play alone completely has helped out Chemical Flask stay in this. They're still behind. Still a lot of strength from Magikarp and Enjoyer. But with those, I mean, look at how the lanes are currently looking. Magikarp are going to start pushing them back. But Chemical Flask far from out of this yet.
And I do think that if we get to a siege scenario one way or the other, so when you coalesce on either the top or the bottom of the map, what's going to happen is you suddenly get a lot more value out of the likes of the 7 and the McGinnis. We have not seen the full strength of what the 6v6 from Alchemical Flask can offer just yet, and that is the big hope. Magikarp needs to be super careful about how they encroach upon this team. I think that they need to prioritize getting picks, maybe through a bombing raid from the Ivy or the Haze, looking for a sneaky flank onto the backline, before they can say, let's start taking these last few walkers, let's start trying to crack open the enemy base, let's go for mid-boss, because the response can really be backbreaking. And in fact, we saw that in a small way around that last objective. Even though multiple people in the Alchemical Flask were dropped, somehow it was Great Talon able to bring it through at the end. And now, in fact, the people who are getting the picks are, in fact, Alchemical Flask. That is going to be the Moat and Krill dropping a combo, getting the Viscous off the map. This is going to allow for a united push upon one of these other objectives, a Walker. Vulnerable and open for the McGinnis to take.
Absolutely beautiful stuff. Once again, very tight here. That's another member of Magikarp down. Big.
Oh, and this is coming at the worst possible time. Magikarp going to try to pull the trigger here. Likely are going to be able to find the Paradox and the McGinnis and the Moe and Krill on top of it, so it's not the end of the world, but that was 2 members of Alchemical Flask pushing onto the last walker, and that is all 4 finally falling for their side. And so the question is for Magikarp, can they make it worth it? Trying to push back onto the enemy side of the lane. It's going to be a Great Talon coming out to try to stun the multiple people encroaching upon this neutral objective. Right now, they are going to try to fall back. Walker still available for the taking here, as Great Talon is going to come through alongside Pocket and 7 to stabilize. And that is going to now be a tied game in regards to the soul count. Overall, still favorable for Alchemical Flask.
Beautiful harass out of the Haze. Can't quite secure the kill. But so many members of Magikarp are very low. They've got to fall back. Gonna give Alchemical Flask plenty of time to yoke whatever they want, any neutral objectives they can on the map. Again, it is remarkable how even this game has been. It has been insane team fight after insane team fight, but both teams managing to keep up pretty competitive.
One thing to note is that this Haze is almost at 30k though. That is a big breakpoint for this character to really become a menace during fights, to get those incredibly extended ultimates available for you. And so a bullet dance here or there could be enough for Alchemical Flask could be put away for good. So even though the battle lines have been drawn and we aren't quite at that point where I think scaling has fully took hold, Alchemical Flask needs to be very careful, because now we're at a point where both teams have enough map presence to really allow for either of them to get this mid boss if they get more than, say, 3 to 4 kills during a fight.
Absolutely. And all those little buffs are going to add up as well, on top of all the souls. Trying to catch Viscous here.
Is it going to work? But this is still going to be Alchemical Flask getting themselves the urn.
They just got to get there. Not very many members of Magikarp are in the position to rotate. They're trying to make their way over.
But we are getting that full stack. It's kind of like Moe and Krill getting the all-star band together. They're all coming alongside them, meeting up, and then pushing as a united front into this lane, trying to crash upon the urn deposit site. And we do see Great Talon playing on that far side. Looks like right now urn isn't quite deposited just yet, and we are going to get the fight initiation started here. Paradoxical swap already burned to Moe and
Massive
Krill still have
shutdown.
combo available, but this is Warden trying to push forward. That being said, it's already the Haze gone early on in this fight. Paradox going to be traded back in kind, and the question is, what can Magikarp do to continue to encroach upon the space of Alchemical Flask? It's going to be the Pocket knocked down early in this fight as well, and with Great Talon retreating, McGinnis is trying to just split push the base here. They're going to actually give the urn up to Magikarp. Warden is going to be sent back to try to absorb this wave being pushed into the Lane Guardians. McGinnis actually is unable to crack the base, and I think that this is still Magikarp coming out on top.
Absolutely. They're making me my words. I was talking about how I wasn't a big fan of the wider AoE kind of crowd control we were seeing them lock in, but with how ahead the entire team is at this point, it is paying it dividends. While Alchemical Flask can manage to shut down a big member, every member of Magic Carpet is so strong at this point that it's just not enough. They've got to commit too much to these individual picks.
And
That's
this is what I'm talking about with this volatility of individual fights, Blastmasters, because we went from a position of even souls to a 10,000 swing over in favor of Magic Carpet off of that encounter around the urn. Now, I would be singing the praises of Alchemical Flask if the McGinnis Gambit actually paid off and they managed to get something like these base guardians and maybe even a shrine, but they don't, right? And so therefore you were away from the fight, you were imbalancing it in favor of Magic Carpet, and for what is the question, that tight macro that I was really looking for out of Alchemical just doesn't really seem to come into play here. And now we're in a position where they're going to be disadvantaged for any engagements around, say, this mid boss.
Absolutely. Alchemical trying for a play here. They're stacking up on that second lane.
Lady guys might be caught out. Looks like they aren't going to actually try to wind around the far side. Hey, they have a flanking angle on this fight. Hayes is going to be able to relocate here in time. Ivy is taken out early in this one, but Paradox had to invest a lot of health in order to make this happen. And in fact, they are going to be picked off in kind, but it's going to be the Hayes down early in this one. Moan Krill going to activate the combo. It's a 3-for-2 so far in favor of Alchemical Flasks. They're once again going to try to lay waste to the enemy base. Big push on their side. They got the wave available. Moan Krill looking for a knock-up on another member. Great talent trying to fire from afar. Doing a great job melting down the lady guys. And now it's only the Viscous and the Warden available to try to work as a D-push here. And with a big shove into this lane, if we get a line boost available for the likes of Paradox or McGinnis, they can sustain this for an exceptionally long period of time. It looks like Alchemical Flask, though, are going to choose discretion over Valor. They are going to instead move over to the mid-boss and look to grab the rejuve.
Absolutely. Great talent almost getting caught by Viscous there. Barely managing to get out. Reconnect with the rest of the team for this mid-boss.
Oh, they're going to try to contest. Ivy going to be up for this play. Mid-boss taking a little bit longer than expected to go down here. McGinnis not available to just ult this away. Warren going to enter from the top side, looking for a big cap on multiple people. Lady guy still not available for this fight.
Behind the
now
steal!
7, less than half health, picked up, and we get the steal on top of it. Magic Carpet turn the game on a dime, as now Ivy is going to make out like a bandit, and that is heartbreak for Alchemical Flask. They have tied up the soul gap, but now they are going to lose the Rejuvenator, and in fact, multiple members to the Kudzu Bomb.
Insane stuff. Hayes trying to move in here. Another member of Alchemical Flask down. McGinnis fights it. Bucket trying to secure the trade here.
Might get it. The ultimate coming out, and they're gonna get wiped. No, I didn't even realize that was ult for the lady guys. But regardless, Magic Carpet are just gonna get the full-on team wipe now. And with a Rejuvenator available, this could be all that they wrote. 2 walkers still up that they're gonna have to knock down, but those are gonna fall in an instant like tissue paper. And now you are setting upon a base with a massive swing in souls going towards your side.
This game's been absolutely insane. Impossibly even here. Just a absolutely beautiful steal from Viscous. Magic Carpet pushing in on the shrines. Seven's the right character for this kind of AoE denial. Manages to secure a kill on Ivy.
Ooh, they're actually able to keep that shrine up for the time being. The problem is Shiv wants to dive in. Cross up, trying to get the most of the situation, will eventually fall here. So multiple Rejuvenators going to be burned in this shove, and I think that this is a time for Set Alchemical Flask to stabilize. That being said, they have dropped over 20,000 souls in the past few minutes. They need to try to get it back as much as possible with these aggressive plays. Moan Krill attempting to push forward, staying on the remaining members of Magic Carpet, but it looks like for the most part, Blue Squad are able to just back off.
The soul urns on the field. You guys move to try and yoink it. Great talent's gonna meet her there.
And this great talent is actually becoming kind of a menace. Good farm, able to get solid damage going. Urn going to be dropped, so this is a chance for Alchemical Flask to make it. Ultimate going to be utilized. Maybe it's gone too far forward, though, as that's Lady Guys rounding the corner. Now Paradox coming in. Paradox will swap already used. Notably, health swap still is available for this lady, guys, so you got to be careful about overextending, particularly when a warden is in your area as well. And unfortunately, Grey Talon rounds the corner with no backup. They're just gonna die. Paradox wasn't there for them anymore, and this means that now you got a 4-man shove all the way on that right lane. While this is happening, Moan Krill is going to be able to get the urn off, but if we get a double pick onto the McGinnis and the Paradox, this could be enough for Magic Carpet to just end the game, and they are halfway towards that goal. There goes the McGinnis as well. A disaster unfolding for Alchemical Flask as they are looking to rally as a 3-stack back inside of the base.
I mean, no, only 2 of them are coming back. Moan Krill going to be trying to push far left lane as hard as possible. Get anything out. Nope, there's fallback.
Yeah, they just don't have the damage, I think, necessary to shred through this, particularly in the presence of the lady guys. And now,
Haze
while they're
does,
gone,
though.
7 is going to die, and this could just be it. It's only the Mowing Curl in the pocket available right now. It's going to be Grey Talon up in 13 seconds, but that may be too little too late. Patron Form 1 already going to be popped. We could easily be going to a 3rd game here in an instant. Mowing Krill trying to stabilize, but with only 1 member up, this is going to be a nightmarish scenario for a character that just doesn't output that much damage. Grey Talon going to crest over the side, looking for some pot shots, but this is a squishy character. They can't stay outside of the base for too long as the Patron is going to drop on in, and already you see the damage being stacked up. This isn't going to be enough for Alchemical Flask to bring it back. Magic Carpet tie the series.
Absolutely incredible stuff from both teams, but absolutely Magic Carpet. It was back and forth constantly for the start of that game, but soon as Alchemical Flask seemed like they stabilized, soon as they went for that mid piece, just the Viscous out of nowhere, yoinking that. Really hard establishing that final lead for Magic Carpet.
Yeah, it's a great showing coming out of the Sapphire Flame here. Magic Carpet enjoyers playing towards their strengths and showing a few new ones that I wasn't expecting out of them. And you look at how well distributed the different virtues are across this map, and Sapphire Flame has so many on so many different people. They played as a coherent whole. The right people were getting fed, the right people were doing damage, and while the Amber Hand had their strengths in their own right, unfortunately, Alchemical Flask just could not bring it all together. I just think that the likes of McGinnis weren't doing enough. You want to see at least 5-digit damage score towards objectives on this character, and you didn't see that come through here. Mo and Krill, for all the lockdown they provided, died quite a bit, and beyond that just couldn't do damage in their own right. And it feels like trying to put so much onto the back of excuses on a character that is inherently super vulnerable just did not pay off. And so therefore, with these adjustments in mind, we are going to be moving into a game number 3. Alchemical Flask and Magic Carpet Enjoyers are currently tied up. Blastmasters, what are you looking to see out of these?
At this point, I really don't know. Both games, I've been completely thrown for a loop from both teams' performances. Characters I expected to really pop off really didn't this game. Characters I wasn't expecting to see a whole lot from managed to absolutely run away with it. At this point, I'm just ready, excited, and willing to see whatever the teams are willing to show off.
Yep, absolutely. I think it's in the hands of the players right now, but thank you everybody for tuning on in the Colossal tournament. So far, this has been an incredible qualifiers run here in First Strike 2 Strike Again. We're going to throw it over to a quick break. When we return, it's going to be for the 3rd draft of the night.
Had me looking through the archives. I seen a picture of you looking like a star shines, and you bright, 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 like the lights on a fight night, night. Love hit me like a mic, mic. You know I'ma get it right. So stay with me, run away with me. Need like a dope fiend, need dope. Need like a coke fiend, need coke. Even though your heart cold, ski slope, I really hope the song bringing me close.
place where you can run free. Time does not exist. Take a chance when the road before us falls under our face. I can't hold on. I can't remain so strong. We have the same old bond, but everything is wrong. My love is gone, but I've been born. I can't break it on my own. When I'm alone, my love is gone. My love is gone, but I've been born. I can't break it on my own. When I'm alone, my love is gone. My love is. There's a place where you can run free. Time does not exist. Take a chance when the road before us falls under our face. I can't hold on. I can't remain so strong. We have the same old bond, but everything is wrong. My love is gone, but I've been born. I can't break it on my own. When I'm alone, my love is gone. My love is gone, but I've been born. I can't break it on my own. When I'm alone, my love is gone. My love is. My love is. I've been watching you with dark eyes every night. Counting up your sins, I keep a list and checking it twice. I know where you've been, I smell the
Hello, friends, and welcome back as we are moving into Colossal Tournament's second shot at qualifying on in for First Strike number 2. This is going to be Magic Carpet Enjoyers versus Alchemical Flask. Diving into a third game here, Blastmaster, as MCE tied things up with an exceptional level of patience and really solid macro that allowed for them to snowball a few team fights into a victory.
Yeah, no, it what blows my mind is how it's very similar to the first game, how even it was, but this time for so long, back and forth, both teams finding openings. But as soon as
Absolutely.
Magic Carpet got that, like, as soon as they drew blood, they were just gone. There's no stopping them.
Yeah, definitely. I think that for me, MCE has the capacity to now show their ability to play late, show their ability to play early, but they, while favoring scaling composition, still know when to pull the trigger on fights. They don't just let the side of Alchemical Flask walk across the map, get urns when they want, etc., etc. But at the same time, Alchemical Flask has a lot of really solid things going their way that can easily lead to them taking the series 2-1. They are not out of it just because they lost this last game. And Deadlock momentum is a myth. But right now, what we are going to be seeing are pretty similar bans to what we saw last time. That is the Kelvin Denied alongside that Infernus. We are back onto the same side as last time, I believe, where it's going to be Alchemical Flask taking it to the left side, while it is Magic Carpet Enjoyers on right, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, no, it is reversed once again. I believe.
Yeah,
So
I was just checking
Big
that.
Donovan, big pocket player from before. Entaz on the other hand, but yeah, we are gonna get a Lady Geist as the first pick. Still high priority. Kind of surprised. While we saw a few clutch plays come out of this character, I just feel that it isn't the most important to a team composition.
No, we've seen it pretty fit into every comp so far pretty flexibly. But it doesn't seem to bend anything else around it. Nothing you'd expect from a first pick. First two lock-ins though on Alchemical Flask side, very interesting. Seeing the Shiv yoink, and they finally yoink this Viscous we've seen a few times on Magic Carpet side.
Yep. So Alchemical now coming in, looking for their next selection. Go alongside the Lady Geist. Shiv also being on the table and grabbed really early on into this one by MCE makes sense. I don't think we've seen its full potential unlocked yet throughout the course of this series. I've talked about how this goes over the top of everything and it's crazy late game, but Blastmaster, it's kind of been an afterthought given how explosive some of these other engages have been. And so I think, may finally be seeing this Shiv come out on top, as both teams, I think, were looking to slow the pace of game number 2 down, and that could happen to an even further degree here, as now everybody's kind of respecting everybody, right? Because this has been two very good teams with a lot of things evenly matching one another, squaring off. Ivy going to be the selection, though, over to that left side.
Can't say I'm fully surprised. The Ivy give a lot of value to Magic Carpet last game.
And so Alchemical stealing it away. We are seeing that as kind of the main dynamic in a lot of these games. When you can't ban multiple characters, you pick the characters that the enemy team favors or you think are strong. Of course, Paradox also going to be one of these hot potatoes that have jumped from side to side. So it's going to go back over to Alchemical now for a second game in a row. It's going to be a Lash, though, brought back out by MCE. This didn't work super well for them in game number 1, but Blastmaster is my favorite character, so I'm happy to see them try to give it another go. But, of course, putting your hopes and dreams of taking this series upon him could be a little bit scary, particularly when so far they didn't do well in laning phase, they didn't do well in mid-game, and they were basically useless come late.
Yeah, no, I want to see it work. There's a lot of... oh, and the McGinnis lock-in. I do really want to see the Lash work. That character has a lot of potential. Insane team fight stuff, especially later on. But we haven't... yeah, like you said, we haven't really seen it come out much yet.
Yep. I do think that McGinnis is a character that has varying amounts of value depending on the team, depending on how you want to play. Last time, I think that I saw what Alchemical was angling towards and why they picked it. It just was the case that you never actually got to the position where it was doing the maximum value that we were hoping to see. So now it looks like it's going to be Magic Carpet Enjoyer's attempt to just take a crack at making this character shine in the ways that we expect. Warden has been a constant character on their side, always kind of been in the background, never been the main focus, but has had several key plays here that were really putting Alchemical on the back foot. So happy to see this return over to this side, as now the Amber Hand is going to grab themselves a Molten Krill.
Once again, yeah. Moan Krill getting used every game at this point. A lot of very consistent characters. And I loved the Bebop first game. I can't even lie. the hooks were absolutely nuts. And then the 7 lock-in is the final one.
Oh, yeah. Now, the 7 is something that I really do think is overvalued right now in these drafts. The ban coming out earlier and then the high priority picks doesn't really make sense to me when this character isn't necessarily taking a ton of space with ult maxing anymore. You're instead looking to play this very like poke oriented style where you're weaving in and out of fights with your movement acceleration. You're throwing out the balls to deny area and deny space. But when you can just go for something as straightforward as hit hook, melt person, or paradoxical swap a squishy into your backline and have them get eaten alive, it feels like it is so much more actionable for Alchemical Flask to just bring their 6-stack together and bring it to bear upon Enthaz and company. Now, I do think that MCE can make it work, And of course, you get enough souls on any character, they're going to be monstrous. But I really feel like, once again, I'm kind of favoring what we're seeing out of Big Donovan and company there for the Amber Hand. I think Alchemical Flask have a better 6-stack.
Yeah, no, I definitely understand that feeling. 7 is definitely, at least gives off the vibes of a very solo queue character. Like, you can perform on their own, even with current, like you were saying, very poke-oriented kind of play style. In these very competitive team formats, though, you can get a lot more value out of some nicher characters, I feel. So, at this point, especially after not really doing much last game, I am very surprised to see it get like so focused on, like you were saying.
At the same time, I mean, they got the Lash, they got the Viscous, which has been a real nuisance in multiple games, and Warden has been a real standout. So I could see that maybe in a composition like this, where you have like plenty of lockdown, that 7 ult becomes more valuable, and you already have McGinnis as one means of space denial. 7 is going to add to that and allow for the Lash to get bigger and better ults off. So maybe as a wombo combo, which is not something you typically consider with 7, this could be the angle. We'll have to just see. I think that actually, Blastmaster, the more I look at this, the more I'm kind of settling on thinking both of these teams have a really good shot of taking this series 2-1 and moving on to face, I believe, Draft Lock up next.
Yeah, that's about what I'm expecting. We should be getting into this next part very soon.
And as a quick correction, I do mean Track Lock when I say Draft Lock. I apologies. We just went through a draft. But in terms of the teams, yes, Tracklock has been sponsoring a team for a while now, which is a really fantastic contribution to the current state of Deadlock Esports. For those of you following, make sure that you drop ! bracket in chat. You can look at the challenge page and how everybody is faring right now. Team Unknown moved over Patron Pulverizers 2-1, while Deadlock Demons and Yumi Panuki still have not played just yet on the far side of this.
And one day you will see, I found my inner beast, and you watch it release.
Well, we do have the characters lined up now. So on the side of the Amber Hand, we got Lolo playing that Bebop, currently designated for a solo lane, but I do believe we've seen it for the most part navigated over to a duo. It's Lady Geist and Paradox together in the hands of Caleb and Big Donovan, respectively. And you got Indio on this Ivy with Excuses on the Mo and Krill, and then Jord building up the rest of the pack, playing that Wraith there on the purple lane. Sapphire Flame, which is going to be Magikarp, enjoys its Mellow on the Shiv. It's going to be Sample on the Warden. McGinnis is in the hands of Enthaz. Wick is playing the Viscous. And then I Am Mamba is on 7 with Atis 47 at the very end, bringing that Lash also to purple. I can imagine seeing that as a rotation as well.
I wouldn't be too surprised. Here we go. Here we go. Looks like finally hopping into our third and final game of the night.
Yeah, very interested in how this laning phase plays out. So far, this has been a relatively even affair for both sides. Last game, we saw a little bit more of a definitive lead built out by Alchemical Flask, but of course, wasn't big enough that it was backbreaking. Magikarp, of course, was able to stabilize, and beyond that, actually come out quite ahead. So we're going to see exactly how this plays out for both of these sides. I would say that given the lane arrangements that we have, Shiv has the ability to poke away at Mo and Krill, but never really deal fatal damage. And this Wraith is having to deal with a 7 who's just able to catch waves being shoved their way this whole time. While Wraith has to be a little bit more patient, having to build up those card charges just through constant fire.
Seeing some damage go out. The Shiv getting chunked pretty low. Mo and Krill, very long cooldowns early, so can't really go for much yet. They're just looking to harass with that scattergun.
Yeah, taking a lot of damage. Good utilization of Mo and Krill suck there on the 1. Getting a little bit of damage even from behind this Walker here and able to keep the wave shoved into the tower. I was not expecting the lane to go this favorably right now for the Mo and Krill. The Mole people have gotten themselves out to a pretty substantive lead here, about 300 souls in their favor, so a whole wave denied, and Shiv is having to slowly make their way back over to their side of the map. And while this is happening, the Mole people are just shoving more into the tower, denying more, and really cascading that in favor of Alchemical Flask. Now, across the rest of the map, what are we looking at here? The Viscous and Lash together, that rotation I was talking about, putting the 7 up against the Wraith. But versus Bebop Ivy, it's very difficult to burst either of these characters down as Lash, particularly because after you use your dive kick, you are suddenly just going to be hit by the uppercut of the Bebop, knocking you back. You get a bomb planted on you. It's tough to go deep, especially when you have Kudzu slowing your escape.
Absolutely. There's a lot of really nice setup on Alchemical Flask's lineup. Just gotta be able to play it out here. Again.
That being said, Magic Carpet, no slouches on that front either. Viscous, Warden, both really good characters to alley-oop kills away from. We got the McGinnis, still also faring pretty well right now. Farm seems about even between these two teams. Lash, first character in the game to crest over the 2K milestone. And I do think that people think of Lash as a little bit more early game oriented, when really he's a mid to late game character that has the ability to do a ton as long as he begins to stack up souls. Sure, early on he gets rotation potential, but I feel that in many cases he's caught between a rock and a hard place in regards to not having enough sustain or burst to really solo people down. And so I like the fact that he's getting prioritized on this front by Magic Carpet enjoyers.
You know, they're like I said, a lot of potential value in the solo lane itself. Struggles a bit, but we've already seen from Magic Carpet they are ready and willing to play around the big group team fights. Like I said, the calm before the storm here. Both teams just poking, pushing as much as they can, looking for any opportunity they can get.
Jordan with double card stacks right now. I'm interested to see whether or not they buy extra charge early in this game. Typically, I think it's really valuable if you're looking for a kill lane. But it seems like up against the 7, they may just be fine to farm up, looking to buy that space through splitting that I was talking about later on once these Guardians begin to fall. Now, in terms of where they're going to fall first, I really do think that we're going to continue to look at this Mo and Krill lane. I don't know how they're doing it, but right now, Excuses is just absolutely bogarting this Shiv back towards their tower time and time again. Now, this isn't translating into a huge soul lead, as the Shiv is doing a good job of cleaning up everything that is being pushed their way. But we always have that idea of rotation as a premium, map presence as at a premium. And right now, it feels like the Shiv isn't able to make the most of it. Meanwhile, Bebop going to get crumpled early in this one. Good stuff out of Magic Carpet, playing and navigating that multi-man fight and repelling. Now they are going to be able to get a shove on that right center lane. Ivy going to rotate across here, looking to catch what could be an over push here. Ultimately, looks like it is just going to be a patient pushback. Viscous actually going to go deep into enemy territory to start grabbing some of these camps that have spawned up past the 5-minute mark.
Alchemical Flask losing that first blood. Still, Excuses pushing so far, already under half on that Guardian. Trying to flex projectile muscles here. Ivy's gonna be close, but they are gonna get out. There's Excuses getting caught. Rotate from Warden.
Things were looking so on lock for that Mo and Krill for a while, but get the multi-man movements going, and not only are you going to be able to pick off the Mo and Krill, but it looks like the Paradox is also going to fall, and now Lady Geist and Mo and Krill are going to have to try to answer back. Good stuff, catching out the Shiv, using that speed boost to get to the lane a little bit faster, catching this Assassin unawares. That is going to help stem the bleeding a little bit, but right now it is a 2,000 soul lead over to Magic Carpet. Now, McGinnis was trying to knock down that tower, drops their ultimate on top of the Guardian. Not able to get it the full way as Paradox is going to rotate in time, but still a valuable position to be in as Mo and Krill just going to die again.
Really rough. Mo and Krill can give so much pressure early, and it's just worth so much value. But so far, Magic Carpenter is doing a fantastic job shutting Excuses down.
And I'm a little bit worried about what this is going to spiral into. Magic Carpet's already up about 2,000 souls with, I think, a slightly scaly composition compared to Alchemical Flask. Now, In terms of late game differentiation of power between these two teams, I do think that this is the narrowest amount of a scaling advantage that Magic Carpet enjoyers have had throughout the course of the series. But you still got that Shiv, you got that 7, and you have the Lash as well. This has to be something that Alchemical Flask has to start feeling worried about.
Flask doing a good job with this farm, keeping the Soul Lead from spiraling too fast.
I would agree with that.
We're seeing some big damage though. Wick trying for the chase here.
Big aggressive play. Ivy still has quite a bit of health to play with, but unfortunately, while they stay topped up, Wraith is not so lucky. That being said, they are going to trade that McGinnis back, starting off that fight with that pick. But unfortunately, now Ivy's overextended and Paradox has fallen alongside them. Magic Carpet come out with another aggressive and advantageous fight. Now up 4,000 souls, and they're about to turn that into more if they can get this earn run going.
Beautiful stuff. The wall followed up by the McGinnis ult. Good poke. Chase, nice. You bump uppercut into the mode Krill. Oh no!
What a wombo combo. Warden unable to get out of that situation. That being said, CC is going to drop upon them, and so a little bit of a dead man's hand there to bring that to a 1-for-1. Magic Carpet still able to stabilize that play and come out on top overall.
Still very close. It's going to be another Guardian down. More souls. Magic Carpet's pockets building a bit of a lead here.
Now, this isn't out of the hands of Alchemical Flask just yet. We've seen that late game fights can swing an entire game by a matter of 10 to 15,000 souls. And so, in comparison to that, this feels like peanuts. We are very early into the game, though, and so in terms of getting a snowball started early, this is the best you can do in many cases. Magic Carpet enjoyers are playing very well overall, and while they've lost a few members to slight overextensions here and there, in many cases they are getting back double what they're putting into these fights. And Alchemical Flask, I feel like, have already lost their opportunity to really land a death blow to Magic Carpet enjoyers early. Now you're gonna have to wait a little bit longer for the likes of this Paradox or this Lady Geist to have presence in this game.
Absolutely. Still pushing hard for this Guardian. Seeing a couple rotates from Alchemical. Beautiful knockup. Forcing Viscous into the ball. The wall finally gonna get burnt down.
And this is an interesting call. Ivy Ultimate going to be activated here. You can see that little wiggle of hesitation. Ivy trying to figure out where they want to try to bring a team fight to. They're going to drop immediately on top of the Shiv. Bomb stack's going to be activated into the hook back. Great stuff here coming out of the Amber Hand, but Ash is going to try to answer back. Gets the ultimate off into the Death Slam, and that is going to be enough to take down what was a very low and ailing Mo and Krill alongside a Bebop too. So Magic Carpet enjoyers are back on that exact same dynamic. They wait for Alchemical Flask to overextend, looking for one of their own, and in turn they're able to come out ahead. And in fact, Viscous is getting in on the party as well, finding an isolated Ivy near the secret shop. That is going all in favor of Magic Carpet enjoyers once again, and now they're up by more than 5,000 souls.
Absolutely beautiful stuff. Again, we were seeing some of that scramble we saw in the second game where it bounces back and forth. But Magic Carpet seemingly finding their momentum, managing to turn it back yet again, building that lead further and further. This Solar's going to help if they can secure it. Nobody on Alchemical Flask side really in position to. They're going to try, though, setting up on that lane with Viscous. But now they're not going to be able to make it.
Yeah, no rotations coming in time. McGinnis going to be able to deposit this one, bring more value over the side of Magic Carpet enjoyers, and you see that immediate jump. We're almost pushing towards that 8,000 soul milestone, where now you got multiple stacks of items in favor of Magic Carpet enjoyers. That being said, Bebop can bring this fight back here. This could be valuable. It looks like Warden, though, is just a little bit too beefy, a little bit too tanky right now for the Bebop to deal with, so they're going to cancel their ult and just try to retreat, particularly as you're seeing Magic Carpet really begin to move as one. These Enjoyers are all stacking currently on the central lanes, looking for an angle. In fact, Wick has activated their ultimate and is zooming across the map here on the Viscous. Looks like they're actually going to catch one of these lanes that by moving as a 5-stack you're kind of neglecting. So I like this call. Shiv going to meet up alongside them.
Absolutely. Might be seeing Alchemical Flask make a play for this mid boss here. No? They're keeping it in mind, rotating over to that third lane.
At the same time, we see the volatility of taking mid-boss. That crazy steal in game number 2 that got Magic Carpet Enjoyers ahead is something that you cannot afford to risk. And it's too early in the game to just melt it in an instant. People will be able to rotate in time as they are currently rotating upon Shiv. Ivy going to try to thwomp block forward. Not really necessary. 1-for-1 trade back, though. Good stuff to get that fadeaway kill as Magic Carpet Enjoyers are going to keep that even.
Absolutely. Magic Carpet looking for another Guardian here. Pushing that far right lane hard.
That puts them above the 10k milestone in regards to the soul lead before we crest over the 15-minute mark. This is really good for them in terms of snowballing this to victory. Now, we saw a similarly begin to form in favor of Alchemical Flask in game number 1, but Magic Carpet Enjoyers, I think, have gotten the most direct and impactful advantage so far. That being said, Warden is at risk of getting picked off here. Great paradoxical swap. It's going to cascade into a Bebop ultimate, and that is going to be a nice consolation prize for the Flasks to bring it right back, and immediately that gap is going to shrink considerably.
I'll stop their fire.
Absolutely. Still, Magic Carpet managing to maintain 6k lead here. Remember, down. More and more of an opportunity for Alchemical Flask to swing this over time.
And one thing to note about the side of Alchemical Flask is that while the Guardians have all fallen for their side, they have kept their walkers available, and so map is still looking relatively even between these two teams, and the gap isn't so big right now that they couldn't do things such as contest next soul urn. So they have major opportunities across this map to, as long as they maintain presence, still find that big swingy fight that could quickly take them into a lead, as we've been establishing as one of the main dynamics of the Deadlock mid game here throughout this series.
Launching goo.
Seeing a couple members of Alchemical Flask here stack mid. Both the mirror weight. Mokrill and Warden both keeping an eye and an ear out. Both teams ready to spring at any kind of mistake.
No contestation over the buffs right now. Good timing established by the side of Alchemical Flask to pick up the casting value. Over 2, I believe, the paradox there. Wick looking for another fast rotation. Maybe even more. Warden activating their lockdown will be able to just pick up a Wraith, overextending there on that far right lane, but that is a 3-stack that has been shown, and so in response we're going to see the Amber Hand all try to rush down this McGinnis, who currently finds himself cowering under the Walker. Now, out of all the characters you want in a 1v4 situation trying to defend Walker, of course McGinnis is really valuable on that front, and in fact, even though this neutral objective goes down, it is something that we are still going to see the side of Magic Carpet Enjoyers look to find pushes off of. And while they lose Shiv here, this is a walk down all the way onto the far side tower to mirror the play being made by Alchemical Flask. And while that's happening, you got the tag team of the Lady Geist and the Paradox taking down another one there, I believe on the blue lane. Now we got a huge fracas going. This is going to be a man advantage fight over to Alchemical Flask. But we are going to see the rotation in kind.
You like the cube there on to Lash, save him from that hook. And the 3 other members of Alchemical Flask were waiting in the rafters.
Still a big gold lead over to the side of Magic Carpet, but they've kept it at around 11,000. Alchemical Flask can still bring this back. Proportionally, that soul gap is growing smaller as both teams begin to farm up more. But this is yet again Soul Earn in possession of Magic Carpet, at least at first. We're going to see George try to shove out this far side wave in order to catch the McGinnis unawares. Coming on in, we have the potential Ivy rotation alongside a Moan Krill who's already making their way over. Lady Guys taking the teleporter. We are looking at a full-on team fight starting up. That's Bebop Ultimate early in this one, just trying to get some excessive poke damage down onto Magic Carpet enjoyers, who are mostly scattering for the time being. Wraith Ultimate going to be utilized here, almost out of desperation. Can't find the pick on the lash, and in fact, they are going to be the first one falling in this one. Alchemical Flask, now a man down, looking for more, trying to get the bomb stacks onto as many people as possible. McGinnis, less than half health, Shiv in a lot of trouble, trying to back out of the situation. May not be given the opportunity to do so, but look at the overextension. It's going to not only be the Wraith falling, but also the Moe and Krill and Bebop as well. And now with Magic Carpet enjoyers yet again heavily favored to push forward on this fight, we see that gold lead blossom past the 20,000 soul milestone.
Beautiful stuff. Despite, like you were saying, the soul gap means less and less the further we go. A 20k is still going to hurt either way. It's a very close fight between Seven and Paradox.
Big Sun coming out. The
Comes
question
out.
is, can it come in time? No. In fact, here comes the
actually-
cavalry. What a trade back at the very end with the damage over time. But luckily, that is still going to be the 7 tamed by Alchemical Flask for the time being. A small consolation prize. But they really look like they're on the precipice of elimination right now. They need something big to come back. And frankly, I don't think it can come from their solid play anymore. Instead, Blastmasters, this has to come from a crucial mistake on the hands of Magic Carpet enjoyers.
And something we've seen Magic Carpet pull that less and less. They've had these leads consistently, but they're playing it smart. They're only extending as far as they need to secure a little bit more until eventually they're just unstoppable.
Now,
Alchemical Flask, they can't risk any small mistakes.
absolutely, Alchemical Flask need to play perfectly, but beyond that, they need to also take risks. But simultaneously, they have to have those risks be known quantities. What are you risking? Maybe a death here and there is still worth it if you could get multiple in return, but we haven't been able to see them get to a point where that has been a consistent trend for them. In many cases, when they fight, they are simply losing everything because the tracking potential for Magic Carpet enjoyers has been so immense. And we're looking at the 7 already getting so far ahead of everybody else in regards to the farm count. The one person that can contest on the other side for Alchemical Flask is this Lady Geist in the hands of Kayla, but right now they're getting bullied off of yet another lane. Ivy at their side is going to be able to withdraw alongside the Moat and Krill, but with so many members of the Amber Hand over-indexed onto the left side of the map, there's a chance now for this wave to crash into the central tower and finally take down the last walker, opening up another flex slot for Magic Carpet enjoyers. Ivy a little bit low, gonna have to back off from the situation here.
Potentially very big solar grab. But we see Alchemical Flask rotating, trying to catch McGinnis. Good retreat back towards Sapphire Flame side. We're trying to go for a very wide rotate here. Let the rest of Magic Carpet regroup for the cover.
Yeah, and they already have the Shiv occupying that far side lane. Paradox is going to enter into this one using that teleporter to get here, but they just have to back off. The rotations aren't coming through. Alchemical Flask, even with some pushing lanes, aren't able to stabilize it. Instead, they're going to look for a choicey pick in response. Viscous around the corner in a lot of trouble now at about 600 health. Has the ultimate to get to safety, though, and so Alchemical Flask are going to find nothing here once again. And there's a potential for a further fight to be had. See the Ivy ult, I believe, put on top of the Moan Krill in the background, trying to bring them to safety, both. And while this is a big pushing lane all the way to the left for the side of Alchemical Flask, and Magic Carpet enjoyers as a whole still seem to be very much in the lead, as now they're going to find a big pick onto the Paradox, which only is going to further allow them to now shove aggressively. One more engagement, especially given the fact that Alchemical Flask is a man down, and this is the point in the game in which they can begin to quickly put away the likes of that mid-boss. And in fact, that is a McGinnis moving onto it right now.
So it looks like just going for the camps themselves first, but absolutely be seeing the hard rotate. The rest of Magic Carpet are making their way.
Yeah, and this is maybe a little bit of a bait here. Inquisitive members of Alchemical Flask would find a 4-stack moving towards that center stage. Ivy, maybe the one that pulls the trigger on this, and that could be an immense risk to take. Alchemical Flask, for the time being, are going to be able to get the Gargoyle back out to safety. Meanwhile, I got this all the way at the top here. We see this pretty frequently, and Lashes really love to be able to scale, especially with that punch tech, to continue to like climb up walls off the back of wall jumps. It just opens up so much space on the map to find immense burst angles. That being said, you look at the build, this is much more one of these kind of hybrid Lash builds that is looking for multiple shots of their 3 during the course of a fight.
Absolutely, and it makes a lot of sense. There's already a lot of power on Magic Carpet side. Look at the 33k 7, who, despite having that much farm, a lot of the power and pressure we're seeing being put out here is from the Shiv, from the Viscous, from the Warden. I absolutely expect that 7 to explode some people, as we're gonna see. There goes Wraith. Absolute, like, put together unit on Magic Carpet side, moving as 1. With that pick, they might look for mid boss here.
That being said, hard to look for mid-boss when, once again, waves are pushing. Alchemical Flask have been on top of it with the Amber Hand, getting waves back over to the enemy side, even as they are sitting in a deficit.
The pincer maneuver.
With the Wraith down, this could be a dangerous situation. McGinnis Wall going to be dropped in this one. Reset coming through for the second one to continue to stop the escape route coming out for the Lady Guys. That being said, Bebop is trying to cover their tracks for the time being. McGinnis going to try to work forward here, but that is Viscous getting Paradoxical swapped early in this one. Shiv is gone, but so is the Paradox, and so right now it is a 1-for-2 in favor of Magic Carpet, although with the Viscous going low and finally being taken out, it's going to cascade into now a 3-for-3. Alchemical Flask trying to dig their heels in and hold on. There's a Walker at their back for them to get their last 2 members out, but unfortunately that is going to be the Bebop dying at the very back end of this one. And look at the positioning on the map. Magic Carpet with the remaining members are able to push upon yet another Walker, even with just a small wave at their back, and that means that this is still a fight going in favor of the Sapphire Flame, even as, given the soul lead, you would expect total domination out of them. They're still getting plenty.
So playing it phenomenally, really well done by Alchemical Flask, almost taking that even, which could have been great for them, but now so much pressure, so well fought by Magic Carpet. Insult to injury, the Soul Urn comes down at that moment. Once again, we're going to see the McGinnis rush past. You like that casting buff.
And I think that at this point, the outcome of the game is starting to look inevitable. I was worried about the scaling on Magic Carpet's side, and it looks like it's not only that, but only 25 minutes into the game, but there's also a big soul buff. This would be enough for a team without that inevitability to put it away, and right now it does look like the Enjoyers, barring any major mistakes, could come away with this victory. That being said, I like this call. Alchemical Flask don't want to just give the Soul Urn up for nothing. In fact, they're going to try to de-push the McGinnis for the time being, and now we are seeing a little bit of a rotation. Magic Carpet want to try to find a new angle for entrance. McGinnis going warden low right alongside the Shiv, picked off early, but they are going to be traded back for the Wraith to start us off in this one. One Krill trying to push forward, looking for an angle upon a Viscous with a bomb stack on top of them. Will be able to get to safety, but the Goo Ball is basically out of this fight, going too low on health. But now the Mole Man is going to die in return. Now Shiv trying to get their way out of dodge after looking for that assassination. Will not be able to do so. 2-for-3 overall in favor of Magic Carpet.
Might be 4 if they can secure this kill on Bebop. Now Bebop's gonna hightail it. Meanwhile, the 7, we've seen not super participating in all these fights, but just an absolute push monster.
Oh, they're going for the shrine. This is huge for their side, and this is what I like to see out of this character. You're working as a virtual wraith, but with a lot more farm under your belt. It's going to take multiple people to take the Electro Man down. That being said, it will be Alchemical Flask sending those multiple men over. 7 trying to get on out, using the zipline. Gonna double back as well. I think Bebop sees that this is happening, but they just can't maneuver in kind. Here comes the wraparound. Wraith trying to use their ultimate to lock this person down. Will be able to get it off. Lifted onto the 7 who's gonna be knocked out.
Beautiful, like wide flank around to catch 7 on the back foot.
Still,
Great
though,
stuff.
while this is happening, it's still a 20,000 soul lead over to the side of Magic Carpet enjoyers. Alchemical Flask are not getting to a point where this game is getting any easier for them. Even if you are getting individual kills, you need to get a Rejuvenator. You need to knock down these 3 standing walkers for the Sapphire Flame, or this game is just over.
Absolutely, but you gotta respect, they are refusing to just go quietly. They are making Magic Carpet fight for every little win here. Are gonna manage to regather that solar, and Viscus is gonna try and get the yoink.
Yep, yet another Urn run started by Magic Carpet. And we're going to see whether or not Alchemical Flask want to go for yet another fight around the far side. This time, though, it's a lot more proactivity out of the enjoyers, as they're already going to send Lash, Shiv, and McGinnis over to absorb this wave. And it looks like the response might actually just be Alchemical Flask saying, no, we aren't going to contest this anymore. We're going to look for individual picks, and they could get one here against this 7, who once again finds himself face-to-face with a Wraith that is just going to dump every card atop them. That being said, Warden is going to get the revenge kill in kind. So now we are in a 5v5 scenario. That being said, look at the space that has been bought over by Alchemical Flask. The Amber Hand has heavily pushed this far left lane now and is looking for an engage onto the likes of the Shiv. This is a long time coming. Warden on a little bit of flank angle here. Viscus is keeping a hold of the Urn rather than just going goo ball and trying to spin on in. And we're going to see what is going to be the outcome of this, as Lady Guys could be the first target of Warden. Manages to dash their way on out of the lockdown area. As now with their Urn is going to be put down, and Viscus is looking for the angle. Lash taken to the skies, unable to find the full ultimate to start things off though. Now we got a little bit of a poke game going. Multiple people getting hit by the splash damage of the Lady Geist grenade, but the Moan Crow picked off early, and the Wraith still coming back up. This is the time for Magic Carpet enjoyers to strike and shove towards this Urn drop-off point yet again. And meanwhile, while this is happening, Paradox, Wraith, and Bebop have to go absorb all the rest of the pushing creeps. So I think Magic Carpet enjoyers are just going to get this in an instant here. Being a little bit cautious, it's going to be Viscus dropping it, handing it off to the Shiv, who wants to access those extra soul bumps that you get. And that's another one deposited for Magic Carpet enjoyers who continue to push past new milestones in terms of their soul lead.
Thank you, Paradox with the ulti. This get tried. Warden goes for the lockdown. Managed to get it. Because Paradox. Death timers are really bless you. Death timers are really stacking up here. Full minutes now. Let's see. That's a Wraith with full cards. Somebody could very easily die here. We're seeing a pause.
Yeah, looks like Paradox has DC'd. So Big Donovan hopefully going to be able to get back up in time for us to finish this game off. As it currently stands, though, we look at the clock. I just don't see how Magic Carpet lose this. They've been playing patiently, knowing that they got scaling inevitability as well. It's up to Alchemical Flask to pull the trigger, and right now they're being ran ragged across this map.
Absolutely. Just gonna wait for Big Donovan to join us back in a sec. But yeah, it's man, Alchemical Flask has been facing the beginning and the end for a bit here, especially with how hard, as we said, Magic Carpet's lineup scales. Although you're hitting that point where everybody's pretty strong. Like if Alchemical Flask has been playing some of these fights very well, they've been getting these individual picks, and they're managing to stay in it a bit, but all Magic Carpet needs is a big mistake from Alchemical Flask, like anything to build off of, and it could be the end.
We have resuming back inside of the game. Another earn run to be had. And this could just be the story of it up until the 40-50 minute mark at this point. So buckle on up. Barring any big mistakes one way or the other, this could just be Magic Carpet attempting to further extend their lead to the point where everybody is near full build and able to just take any team fight that happens.
See some damage come out, but nothing to really stop it. Down goes Ivy, down goes Wraith. Immediately caught out.
And you wonder, is this enough for them to mid-boss at this point? We're 31 minutes into this game.
They definitely think so.
I like this call. Now, this is risky. We saw the risk being taken by Alchemical Flask in game number 2. So, can Magic Carpet, with more stability, bring themselves towards the Rejuvenator?
We do have Viscous staying outside, not assisting with the fight. Looks like trying to keep Lock and Key eyes on the rest of the team. Finally moving out for the secure. But, like you said, here come Alchemical Flask.
Lash's Death Slam available, can pull the enemy team outside of the pit. Mo and Krill trying to engage early in this one. Magic Carpet able to pick up the Rejuvenator, and now they're actually looking for the battle on top of it all. Bebop trying to get an ult off through the doorway. Unfortunately, just cannot get wide enough of an angle. Has to cancel that. And meanwhile, it is Mo and Krill and Paradox perishing during that fight. And we see just how long the death timers are getting. The Wraith is not back up just yet. We'll finally get there alongside the Ivy. But while this is all happening, it is going to be the full blue storm inside of the base. One shrine goes down. We're going to probably see the full patron pop here. The question is this the end of the road for Alchemical Flask, or can they mount one last defense?
They have members coming up in 30 seconds. The patrons transition is going to give them a little bit of time here, but I don't think it's going to be enough.
Yeah, this conversion, the transformation, going to take a little bit of time here, but this seems like it is an inevitable end. More than 50,000 in favor of Magic Carpet in terms of the soul count now, and you combine that with the fact they have the Rejuvenator in all their ultimate cooldowns available. We're going to activate early in this one, as it's going to be 7 attempting to zone everybody away. There's no way to cancel this right now, and so therefore it is just going to be Alchemical Flask one last time running into the blender. GG's come out, and that is going to be Magic Carpet enjoyers taking the series 2-1.
Just a phenomenal set, genuinely. Seeing that first game, I never would have expected Magic Carpet not only to come back, but come back as hard as they did. That was a hard Alchemical Flask game 1, but it was just beautiful stuff. Beautiful stuff from both sides.
Yeah, what a showing. The fact that Alchemical Flask was so competitive, especially in those first 2 games, and gave Magic Carpet enjoyers a run for their money, I think has to be commended here. Overall, though, the showing definitely went in favor of MCE, who time and time again were able to set up advantageous positions through solid macro and honestly really good draft phase here and there, getting every single game a draft advantage that went through a manner of scaling. And by the end of every single one of these games, we saw that it was either the side of the Flasks attempting to just accelerate the game state so they didn't have to deal with a Superfed 7 or Haze, or the alternative was that they were just simply getting run down, and that inevitability did come to pass. As it did here, we look upon every single credit here besides the Lady Guys edging out everybody on the Sapphire Flame side in regards to damage. But still, this is a testament to the fact that this is also a team that is working as a cohesive whole. Lash was setting up the plays. Shiv was getting the assassinations. Sample was a menace, by the way, on this Warden, just constantly applying damage to everybody. And Mamba was there as that hyperscaler that I was talking about.
Yeah, just phenomenal. Understanding, the biggest thing I think we saw from Magic Carpet that side, understanding the team comp, understanding how they need to play it, and just playing around it beautifully. We saw Seven, again, wasn't participating in a lot of fights early on, but was just shoving lane so hard, but that by the time they were even a factor, Alchemical Flask was constantly having to deal with that base pressure. They could just always having to split attention.
Definitely the case. I gotta say, Blastmaster, at the end of the day, this is one of the favorite broadcasts I've done so far for the likes of Deadlock, partially because we got such even and close games. This is showing what true mastery over the space looks like, and I think that the era of the clear stomps one way or the other are beyond us now, because I really do think going forward, this is going to be the complexion of Deadlock games. This idea of, while someone may be edging out the other in regards to that very early game, laning phase doesn't matter quite as much as how you coordinate as a team moving on into the 20 to 30 minute mark. So credit to both of these teams for advancing that metagame, advancing the strategies of Deadlock to this extent. We are super excited to see more of both of them take to the bad apple, and either here inside of the Colossal Tournament series or anywhere else within the realm of Deadlock.
Absolutely. Again, big shout outs to Colossal Tournaments for having us, for hosting this whole event. Like I said, first Deadlock event I've gotten to cover, but it was a ton of fun.
Absolutely, yeah. Congratulations once again to Magic Carpet and Joyous for taking the victory here over Alchemical Flask, but I'm sure we're going to see everybody back here around First Strike in all of its oncoming tournaments. But this is it for us here, broadcasting this best of 3 to start out First Strike 2 Strike Again qualifiers. We're going to be back tomorrow at an 8:30 EST start time for Deadlock Demons versus Yumi Panuki. That is it for us. My name is Nyarko. I'm here with Blastmaster. You can check our socials below, but everybody, have a good night.
Sola, 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 sola. Sola, 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 sola. Sola, 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 sola. When I see you dancing, I'm like, hola, 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 hola. See you move fancy, make me wanna hola, 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 hola. I got your attention, spending a hula, 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 hula. So much I'm popping, pocket, sola, 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 sola. I got your attention, spending a moolah, 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 moolah. I'm a drop popping, pocket, sola, 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 sola. Sola, 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 sola. Sola, 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 sola. Sola, 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 sola. Sola, 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 sola.